Chapter 1228. With the loss of control of the grayer mineral load, everyone in the underground palace was bathed in the waterfall composed of chakra crystal liquid that overflowed from the mineral load above their heads. And this cyan chakra crystal liquid with a sparkling halo is like a stream of water, like a rainbow, pouring down from the broken dome of the palace, illuminating the broken palace with a variety of colors. Everyone who was drenched was surprised to find that their bodies seemed to have undergone magical changes, especially the aliens who were injured, as well as Mai and others who were injured by Nagato's ninjutsu. Just now, they found that when their wounds were drenched with the chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral load, their wounds healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. Kakashi immediately said, "This chakra can heal injuries. Is this the recovery of life?" Old Man Heian, who was not injured, continued to say with emotion, "I feel that my body seems to have become younger." Everyone was shocked when they heard this, and immediately felt it carefully. Soon, everyone found that not only their injuries were healed, but even some of the hidden injuries in their bodies or strained muscles, joints, etc., after being drenched with the chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral load, they have also recovered to varying degrees. It seems that, as Old Man Heian said, this is the recovery of life. Ningxi looked at the grayer mineral load above his head in surprise. At this moment, he felt a lot more comfortable, and the burden of the Tenseigan in his eye socket was not as strenuous as before. Sasuke on the side covered his eyes and secretly thought in his heart, "Hey, what's going on? Why is my eternal Manjikyu Sharingan restless?" Humph. At this time, the nine-tails sealed in Naruto's body suddenly opened his eyes and spat lightly, and immediately closed his eyes again, showing a trace of enjoyment on his face, and pretended to sleep. Kakashi and Guy looked at each other, and then saw the look of surprise in each other's eyes. As ninjas who have experienced the Third Shinobi World War, the two of them have suffered countless injuries, big and small. Although those injuries have healed, there are still some hidden injuries left, coupled with some muscle and joint strain caused by long-term training. Although these won't affect their strength for the time being, but as they grow older, it's hard to say what will happen in the future. This is also the reason why the strength of 3 generations Naruto declined so seriously. As long as there is no improvement in the level of life, then age is the biggest enemy of a ninja. Even the 3 generations Naruto, who is known as Dr. Ninjutsu, Hanzo, who is known as Demigod, and other strong ninjas who once stood at the peak of the shinobi world are no exception, because the decline of life is the law of nature, and it is not something that can be reversed by ordinary medical ninjutsu. But at this time, Kakashi and Guy were pleasantly surprised to find that their bodies seemed to have been reborn, and the hidden injuries and strain in their bodies were all healed in the chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral vein. Even Nagato, who has always been indifferent, showed a hint of surprise on his face at this time, and looked at the grayer mineral vein above his head with a more solemn gaze. Although, because of his physique, there are no hidden injuries and strain in his body, but under the stimulation of the high-purity chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral vein, he felt that the Byakugan in his eye socket, which has not been transplanted recently, is restless. Because he has the Rinnegan and obtained the strength close to the 6 paths level, he knew that this restlessness is not without reason. The only explanation is that his ocular power is increasing, and this restlessness has a tendency to become more and more intense, as if it is at a certain critical point. Just when everyone was still immersed in joy, suddenly, a scream came from the side of the mutated race. Everyone looked towards the direction of the sound and found that a heavily armored mutated race's body suddenly swelled up, and the originally burly body has now completely become an inflated balloon. Ningxi, who has the Tenseigan, immediately said, "He can't bear it anymore." Bang! As soon as Ningxi's voice fell, the inflated mutated race exploded into a pool of flesh and blood. Everyone now knows that the chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral vein is not harmless. If the body absorbs too much and can't bear it, it will explode and die. In an instant, the original joy turned into nervousness. Mai, the Akatsuki, and the mutated race, the three sides are once again facing each other. The grayer mineral vein above their heads is no longer a source of life, but a symbol of death. Everyone knows that there's a limit to one's endurance. As long as they continue to delay, they will inevitably explode and die like the mutated race just now. It's only a matter of time. But because of the existence of Nagato, no one dares to act rashly. Hyde, the leader of the mutated race, also realized that the red-haired Akatsuki ninja in front of him has not changed much from the beginning to the end, even in the face of the out-of-control grayer mineral vein, is the key to break the current situation. Only if he takes the initiative to retreat, the people in the palace will have a chance to escape. Damn it, in the face of such horror, is he really not afraid at all? Hyde really can't understand why Nagato is so indifferent to the horror in front of him, and it is very likely that he will die here because of the existence of this strong person comparable to a god. Boom! Just when the atmosphere in the palace is so tense that it is almost suffocating, a big hole exploded in the rock wall above their heads, and then a figure slowly fell into the palace. Just when Hyde was about to look away from Nagato to see who was coming to die at this time, he unexpectedly found that Nagato, who has been calm all this time, changed his expression when he saw the person who came, and then his body shook, and he directly ran into the crack of the mountain and escaped. This, not only Hyde, but all the mutated race people were stunned, and their faces were full of disbelief. The godlike, red-haired ninja had actually escaped, and he escaped in such a panic. On the other side, when Mai and the others saw the figure of the person who came, they all breathed a sigh of relief. Even Sasuke, who is the proudest of them all, had a flash of joy in his eyes. And Ningxi, who has been tense all this time, also relaxed completely. Without a doubt, the figure who fell from the sky is not someone else, but Hyojin, who specially came to check out the grayer mineral vein. Of course, at this time, he is dressed as Yamato of Amatsukami, and he is still wearing the ghost mask on his face. After landing in the palace, Hyojin glanced at the direction in which Nagato escaped, and a trace of doubt flashed in his eyes. Obviously, he has already noticed that in Nagato's eye sockets are the Byakugan and not the Rinnegan. Then he looked up at the grayer mineral vein above his head, and the corner of his mouth twitched. Interesting. Here is the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1229. Naturally, Hyojin was happy to see Nagato's retreat without a fight. He is still in a state of impure earth form at the moment, and he can't even enter the Tenseigan chakra mode, so if he really fights, he is not an opponent of Nagato at all. However, according to his observation, Nagato's state seems to be a little strange. The most obvious thing is that Nagato's eyes are not the Rinnegan, but a pair of Byakugan. This alone is far beyond his expectations, and made him think a lot of things. However, at present, except for the internal members of the Akatsuki, the outside world does not know that the Akatsuki has actually been divided into two. On one side is the original leader Nagato, plus Konan, Kakazu, and Hokuden, while the other side is Obsidian, Zetsu, and Miss Squad, who successfully attacked Nagato and obtained the Rinnegan. Although these two parties are hostile to each other, they both claim to be part of the Akatsuki organization, and they have not leaked any information about the Akatsuki organization to the outside world. So Hyojin, who didn't know about this matter, didn't think too much about it. But just like Ningxi, he naturally thought that Nagato has some new ideas or attempts after the last defeat. After all, Nagato has been in contact with Kuroto, Aoki, and Otsutsuki Samurai, and Hyojin can't tell how much Nagato knows about the Tenseigan. But now is obviously not a good time to explore why Nagato transplanted the Byakugan. So Hyojin converged his thoughts and turned his attention to the grayer mineral vein that is going out of control above his head. Frankly speaking, the amount of chakras contained in the grayer mineral vein is much more than he expected, and when he thought that he got such a high-quality chakra source for free, the corners of his mouth couldn't help but curl up. But soon, Kuroto frowned slightly. From the perspective of composition, The chakra in the grayer mineral vein is similar to the dragon vein chakra. Because it is buried deep in the ground, it continuously absorbs the energy of the dragon vein. So the chakra contains a lot of natural energy. It's just that in proportion, the natural energy in the grayer mineral vein is much less than that of the dragon vein, which actively absorbs natural energy. But unlike the dragon vein, the proportion of yang chakra in the grayer mineral vein is very high. In addition, there are a lot of water and earth chakra in it, so the overall CHRA attribute ratio is very similar to the chakra attribute ratio of the chakra CHS. Therefore, just bathing in the chakra crystal liquid of the grayer mineral vein for a short while, Kuroda, who has the impure earth body, instinctively felt a burst of discomfort. It felt like he was naked under the sun. If he stayed for a long time, he would feel a burning sensation. So Hyojin immediately looked away and waved his hand at Mai and the others. "I'll take care of this. You guys can leave. Then I'll have to trouble you, sir." Kakashi bowed respectfully towards Kuroda, who was dressed in the attire of Amatsukumi's Yama. In the face of the leader of Amatsukumi, Kakashi didn't dare to argue at all. Sasuke, on the other hand, took a serious look at Yama. After confirming that Yama didn't have any intention of giving him a secret mission, Sasuke, who had secretly joined Amatsukumi, left the underground palace with Kakashi. Just like Sasuke, Ningtse also stared at Hyojin for a while. Seeing that Hyojin did not look at him, he knew that Hyojin did not want to expose his identity, so he left with the others. In the blink of an eye, Mai and the others left the underground palace. As Mai and the others also left the underground palace, only Hyojin and the group of aliens were left in the palace. Just as Hyojin glanced at the group of aliens, the aliens also looked at Hyojin in horror. They knew very well that the mysterious man wearing a black and gold-edged cloak and a grimace mask was definitely more terrifying than those powerful ninjas just now. Otherwise, those arrogant ninjas just now would not have fled so decisively, like my seeing a cat. And those ninjas just now were already unimaginably strong, so they couldn't imagine how strong the mysterious man in front of them was. Haida, the leader of the aliens, swallowed his saliva and said to Hyojin with a smile, "Sir, we just entered this place by mistake. Since you want to deal with this place, we will leave first." After saying that, Haida stared at Hyojin and walked towards the crack that led to the ground. Hyojin smiled. "Who allowed you to leave?" Hearing this, all the aliens, including Haida, were stunned, and their faces showed fear. Haida even asked with a trembling voice, "Sir, no sir, what do you want us to do? We are willing to serve you." Hyojin did not pay any more attention to this group of aliens. Instead, he raised his hands and began to form a hand seal. Kuroda wasn't interested in dealing with such a group of aliens. He just found out that the blonde boy Tenseigan among this group of aliens was somewhat different. It seemed that he could easily withstand the chakra crystallized liquid of the grail mineral load pouring down from above his head. So he kept this group of aliens. Seeing that Hyojin did not pay any more attention to him, Haida was shocked and frightened. On one hand, he was worried about the grayer mineral load that had gone out of control, and on the other hand, he was worried that Hyojin would harm him. But since Hyojin did not say anything, he did not dare to leave without permission, so he could only stand there anxiously. "Huh!" At this moment, as Hyojin shouted, streaks of black sealing techniques flowed out from the crack of his palms that were pressed on the ground. Then they quickly spread along the ground and the walls. In just a few short breaths, these sealing techniques that seemed to have spirituality were like streaks of black chains, entangling the grayer mineral load that had gone out of control above the palace. As the sealing techniques spread around, the surging grayer mineral load gradually calmed down, and the shaking of the ground also stopped. In the canyon, swoosh with a wind-breaking sound, Nagato rushed out of the underground and came to the surface. Xiaonan, who was guarding the surface, and Jiaodu, Fei Duan, and the others who had left the underground palace earlier quickly went up to him and asked with concern, "Nagato, are you okay? Yama seems to have gone down just now. Did you guys meet him?" Nagato, who was covering his eyes, said, "I met him, but just like last time, he did not chase after me." Xiaonan quickly asked, "What happened down there? Why did someone like him come too?" At first, Xiaonan did not care much about the grayer mineral lode, but when she found out that even a powerhouse like Yama was attracted here, she immediately felt that the grayer mineral lode might really be some kind of treasure. Feeling the fetal movement in his eye sockets, Nagato, who was a little dizzy, said, "We'll talk about this later. Let's leave this place first. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes." Chapter 1230. After Nagato and the others left in a hurry, Kakashi and others also came out of the ground. As soon as his feet landed on the ground, Kakashi said, "Did you guys feel it? The shaking of the mountain seems to have stopped." Guy nodded. "Well, it did stop." Sakura, who escaped with Old Heian, said, "It must be Yama who did something. He's a sage. It should be no problem for him to deal with a mineral vein that is out of control." Old Heian on the side opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but in the end he wisely closed his mouth. In the warning passed down from generation to generation in their clan, this ruin is a forbidden place that must never be set foot in, and once an accident causes the grayer mineral vein in the ruin to go out of control, the only way to avoid the destruction of the world is to activate the ancient psychic array located in the underground palace of the ruin and send the out-of-control grayer mineral vein into the space-time crack. Only people with the bloodline of the ancient Empire royal family can activate the ancient psychic array located in the underground palace and send out the space-time crack. Old Heian wanted to tell Mai and others that the blonde boy Tenseigan among the aliens is a descendant of their royal family. Because the body can contain grayer stone is something that can only be done with their royal bloodline. So only the blonde boy Tenseigan can stop the out-of-control grayer mineral vein and prevent the destruction of the world. But when the words came to his mouth, he thought about it and swallowed it back. After seeing the strength of the ninjas, he has realized that the strength of today's ninjas has probably surpassed the empire established by their clan. And the mysterious person who entered the underground palace last was called Sage by the Konoha ninjas around him. So he felt that maybe he didn't need any royal bloodline at all, and he didn't need to summon any space-time rift to quell this disaster. And the earth that stopped shaking at this time seemed to confirm his thoughts. Ningxi has no doubt that Hyojin can solve the out-of-control grayer mineral vein. So the first thing he did when he came to the ground was to search for the whereabouts of the Akatsuki organization. After confirming that the Akatsuki organization has left the canyon, he turned off the Byakugan and said, "The Akatsuki organization has withdrawn." Kakashi looked at Ningxi with a deep meaning, and then said, "Let's leave as soon as possible." Everyone nodded, and then left the canyon with Old Heian, who was still a little dizzy. In the underground palace, looking at the mysterious person, the palace stopped collapsing, the mountain stopped shaking, and even the out-of-control mineral vein gradually calmed down. Just a moment ago, there was an earth-shattering scene of doomsday, but in the blink of an eye, there were only a few clanging sounds of broken bricks and pebbles falling on the palace. Looking at each other, the eyes of the aliens also became more and more awed as they looked at Kuroto. At this time, Hyojin, who was standing in the center of the palace, clapped his hands. Sealing techniques can be said to be the most unreasonable technique in the shinobi world, and the four-symbol seal is one of the sealing techniques developed by the Uzumaki clan specifically to deal with a large number of chakra. So even if the grayer mineral vein is out of control, Hyojin can still temporarily seal it with the four-symbol seal. After temporarily controlling the out-of-control grayer mineral vein, Hyojin noticed the ancient formation on the floor in the center of the palace. Is this the ancient formation that can connect to the space-time rift? After thinking to himself, Hyojin thought to himself, it seems that the ancient empire is still something. Just from this formation that can connect to the space-time rift, it can be seen that the ancient empire has some skills, at least in the research of formations. They have their own unique methods. After carefully recording the ancient formation on the floor, Hyegen raised his head and carefully observed the structure of the grayer mineral vein above his head. Soon, he discovered that the so-called grayer mineral vein is actually a huge crystal stone inlaid in the mountain. At first glance, the texture is somewhat similar to jadeite, but it is more transparent than jadeite, and its whole body is glowing with a bright light, just like a piece of jade under strong light. Rubbing his chin, Hyegen pondered about how to move this grayer mineral vein. After experiencing the loss of control of the grayer mineral vein just now, an idea suddenly flashed in his mind. At the moment, he is lacking materials to construct an altar. If he can use the entire grayer mineral vein as the altar for his next ritual, then he can not only solve the problem of the altar not being strong enough, but he can also use the huge amount of chakra contained in the grayer mineral vein. This place has already been exposed. The Akatsuki organization and the 5 great shinobi villages know about this place, so I must move the entire grayer mineral vein away. Thinking of this, Hyegen looked at the group of aliens who were huddled in the corner nervously. Seeing Hyegen looking at him, the leader of the aliens hurriedly said with a flattering smile, "My lord, if there is anything you need from us, please don't hesitate to ask." Hyegen directly ignored Hyde and walked in front of the blond boy Timsey, glancing at the grayer stone inlaid on Timsey's chest. Before this, his memory about the grayer stone was very faint, but after arriving here and seeing the group of aliens with his own eyes, his memory gradually became clear. He now knows that the blond boy Timsey in front of him is a descendant of the ancient empire's royal family, and can barely be regarded as the legal owner of this ruin. As for the leader of the mutated race, Haida, he was just an ambitious bandit. After slaughtering Timsey's village with his own hands, he used the identity of Hyde and the slogan of building a utopia to bewitch Timsey and a group of teenagers who hate war and killing to work for him. Collecting his scattered thoughts, Hyegen asked the aliens, "How much do you know about the grayer stone?" The aliens all shook their heads, and the leader Hyde explained, "This is just a misunderstanding. We were affected by it and mistakenly entered this place." "Is that so?" The corner of Hyegen's mouth twitched, and then he reached out to Hyde. Hyde was instantly shocked. "What do you want?" Including the blond boy Timsey, the aliens all took out their weapons. Although they knew that Hyegen's strength was terrifying, they obviously did not want to be captured without a fight. Kuroto didn't pay any attention to these aliens. With just a thought, all the aliens except Hyde were sent flying by an invisible repulsive force and fell heavily to the ground. "You have no secrets in front of me." Saying that, Hyegen's hand reached into the trembling body of Hyde and directly used the giant Tenseigan's ability to take out Hyde's memory light ball and read it. Looking at the light ball in Hyegen's hand that contained his past memories, Hyde was completely stunned. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1231. You took out my memory. Hyde was completely stunned. He could not imagine that there was such a powerful person in this world who could easily look through someone's memory with just a wave of his hand. In an instant, a bone-deep fear drowned him, and he could no longer think of resisting. Timsey, who was sent flying, immediately got up from the ground. He rushed towards Hyegen and shouted, "Let go of Lord Hyde!" Due to the stone of grayer embedded in his body and the large amount of chakra he obtained when the grayer mineral vein above his head went out of control, he was in the best condition among all the non-humans and had the most chakra. Kuroto glanced at Tim She indifferently, and then once again activated Rain Will Pull, sending him flying away. "Idiot!" After a light snort, Hyegen threw Hyde's memory ball in his hand. In an instant, the light sphere that recorded all of Hyde's past memories streaked across the air in an arc and landed on Timsey, who had fallen to the ground. Then, it slowly integrated into Timsey's body. Timsey was startled. Hyde's memories flashed through his mind. From Hyde's perspective, he saw the scene of his village being slaughtered by Hyde. Ignoring Timsey, who was in a daze on the ground, Kuroto raised his hand lightly and took the book of grayer from the storage bag on Hyde's waist. After going through Hyde's memory, Hyegen found out that Hyde had such an ancient book with him. Obviously, Hyde learned everything about the Stone of Greyer through this ancient book. That was why he traveled across the ocean to find the mineral vein that produced the Stone of Greyer. He wanted to use the power of the Greyer mineral vein to fulfill his ambition of ruling the world. However, plans could never keep up with changes. Hyde thought that he was the one who played with people's hearts and manipulated everything behind the scenes. But after coming here, he realized that this world was completely different from what he imagined. With a plop, Hyde knelt on the ground. My lord, this book of Greyer is for you. Please spare me. Hygen was not interested in talking to Hyde. He continued to read the book of Greyer in his hand. The book recorded the origin of the Stone of Greyer in detail. From the creation of the crystal to the various ways of using it, almost every step was mentioned. At the same time, the book also mentioned that only those with royal blood were qualified to use the power of the Stone of Greyer. Kuroto naturally scoffed at this argument. The so-called royal bloodline can only use the power of the Stone of Greyer. As long as he ponders over it a little, he will be able to find the trick in it. This was because the cause and effect relationship was obviously reversed. It was not only royal blood that could use the Stone of Greyer. In ancient times, those who could adapt to the power of the Stone of Greyer used it to build an empire and became royal. The author who wrote the Book of Greyer was most likely from royal blood. That was why he intentionally reversed the cause and effect relationship and made it seem like the royal blood belonged to him. It's you. You killed my parents and massacred my village. At this time, the blonde Tenseigan stood up and looked at Hyde angrily. Hyde knew he could not hide it anymore, so he quickly yelled to the 3 female knights not far away, "Quick, kill him!" The 3 female knights who could mutate were Hyde's true accomplices. They had slaughtered villages and killed innocent people. Therefore, after receiving Hyde's order, they immediately pounced on the blonde teenager, Tenseigan. Tenseigan quickly yelled to the other heavily armored warriors, "We've all been fooled. There is no such thing as an ideal country. Hyde is the one who killed and looted." Soon, the group of non-humans started killing each other. The blonde young man with the Stone of Greyer embedded in his body was obviously more powerful than the female knight of Hyde. Soon, Hyde's accomplices were eliminated one by one. Then, Tenseigan walked to Hyde with his long sword in hand. Hyde panicked. He knelt on the ground and begged, Tenseigan, for the sake of me taking you in, please spare me. You killed my parents and destroyed my village. How can I spare you?" Tenseigan clenched his teeth, but he could not swing his sword down. Obviously, although the young man was bent on revenge, his innocent personality made it difficult for him to be ruthless. Seeing an opportunity, Hyde's expression became ferocious. He suddenly transformed his body and reached out to stab Tenseigan's chest that was inlaid with the Stone of Greyer. Tenseigan turned pale with fright, but it was too late to dodge. He could only watch as the ferocious smile on Hyde's face gradually spread. Boom! Just as Hyde's hand was about to touch Tenseigan's chest, an invisible repulsive force sent both Hyde and Tenseigan flying. After Hyde's sneak attack was interrupted, Tenseigan no longer hesitated. He immediately swung his sword and stabbed at Hyde. In an instant, a surge of chakra gathered on Tenseigan's long sword, and like a torrent, it pierced through Hyde's body, completely beheading this ambitious alien. After taking revenge, Tenseigan threw away the sword in his hand and came to Hygen. He bowed and said, "Thank you for your help just now." Hygen closed the Book of Greyer in his hand and said calmly, "I'm not interested in your farce. I just want to know if you can control the ironclad warship on the ground." Tenseigan nodded quickly. "Yes." Hygen said casually, "Okay, then you can help me move something. Consider it a favor." Tenseigan asked, "What do you want us to move for you?" Suijin smiled and immediately pointed to the Greyer mineral vein above his head that was exuding a bright halo. With his own ability, he could actually move the entire Greyer mineral load away. However, it would be too strenuous and eye-catching, and it would be easily discovered by other forces. Coincidentally, the giant iron-armored warship of the non-human kind was in the valley. If he could borrow the iron-armored warship of the non-humankind to transport the grayer mineral vein to the sea where no one would ever travel, and then secretly transport it to the air fortress, it would save a lot of effort, and at the same time, he could hide it from the public. This is the reason why Tenseigan saved Tensei's life just now. Tensei was shocked when he heard that. Move the entire mineral load away? But how are we going to move it to the ground? That's not difficult at all. With a chuckle, Tenseigan activated Rain Rui. While holding the grayer mineral load above his head, he brought the surviving alien race to the ground with a series of roars. Third update, please recommend votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to all the students who tipped today. Thank you. Chapter 1232. Standing on the deck of the alien ironclad warship, Tenseigan was enjoying the sea breeze while maintaining the seal on the grayer mineral vein. At this time, he secretly rejoiced that he had saved Tensei's life in the underground palace. Otherwise, it would not have been easy for him to move such a huge grayer mineral vein by himself. On the iron-armored warship, Tensei had already gotten rid of his companions who had been tricked by Hyde from the dissimulation device. It turned out that the burly, heavily armored foreign race warriors who had followed Hyde were all teenagers of the same age as Tensei. They had been transformed by Hyde's mechanical device. These teenagers, including Tensei, had been bewitched by Hyde's slogan of building a utopia. Without exception, they were all expendable for the ambitious Hyde. Out of curiosity, Tenseigan also studied the dissimulation device. It was not difficult for him to see that Hyde's dissimulation device was actually a kind of gene fusion device. Hyde collected some animal genes and forcefully fused them into a human body. This way, the human body would mutate and gain the abilities of an animal. Hyde himself and the 3 female foreign race knights who were his trusted subordinates were all products of this gene fusion. After understanding the principle, Tenseigan immediately lost interest in it. This kind of primitive and violent gene fusion was actually a kind of pollution to one's own genes. Even if one was lucky enough to survive the gene fusion, one would become a half-human, half-beast monster. Moreover, the gene fusion between different species was very unstable. One might be able to sleep well one night, but the next day, one would lose consciousness and memory and become a beast. Therefore, Tenseigan did not care about this at all. At this time, Tensei came to the bridge. After looking at the grayer mineral vein, which was the size of a basketball court, he immediately looked away and said to Tenseigan respectfully, "Sir, we have now left the coast. Where are you going?" Tenseigan casually pointed at the sea in front of him. In fact, as long as he reached the remote area of the ocean, he could leave the ship at any time and meet up with the air fortress alone. Therefore, he did not have a specific destination. He only needed to go east towards the depths of the sea. Tensei carefully identified the direction of Tenseigan's finger, then bowed to Tenseigan and said, "We will go in that direction." After saying that, Tensei informed his companions below and adjusted the direction of the iron-armored ship. Woo! With a low whistle, the iron-armored ship moved at full speed in the direction pointed by Tenseigan. The iron-armored ship was indeed a bit interesting. Not only could it travel on the sea, but it could also travel on the road. However, the shinobi world did not have similar technology. Tenseigan's air fortress that could float in the sky was far more difficult than this iron-armored ship. It was just that the shinobi world focused more on the improvement of personal strength, so the development of machinery was far less than the iron-armored ship. After all, although these ironclad warships looked impressive, a single jade-tail beast would be enough to destroy them if they encountered a tail beast. Soon, a day had passed. The speed of this iron-armored ship was much faster than the average passenger ship. So after a day of sailing, the iron-armored ship had passed through the waters of the land of water and entered the remote area of the sea. After confirming that there were no followers nearby with the Tenseigan, Tenseigan, who was sitting cross-legged on the bridge, slowly stood up. Tensei, who had been standing beside Tenseigan, hurriedly asked, "Sir, are you leaving?" "Yes." Tenseigan nodded, Then activated rain will pull to lift the grayer mineral vein that had been placed on the bridge and slowly flew into the air. At this time, the alien teenagers on the iron-armored ship all came to the bridge and looked up at Hyojin. Hyojin looked down at Tenseigan, who was also looking up at him, and said, "Go back to your hometown. Although the utopia in your imagination does not exist, it does not prevent you from working hard for it." After saying that, Hyojin did not look back and quickly disappeared into the sky with the grayer mineral vein. Looking at the direction where Hyojin had gone, an alien teenager asked Tenseigan, "Tenseigan, can the utopia really be realized?" Tenseigan nodded heavily. "Since the sage wants us to work hard, then a utopia without disputes and killings will definitely be realized. Yes, since the sage has said so, how can we give up so easily? I didn't expect the sage to really exist in this world." We stayed with the sage for 2 whole days. With the words left by Hyojin before he left, the depressed alien teenagers suddenly regained their confidence and set foot on the voyage back to their hometown with full of energy. On the other side, Hyojin soon met up with the Sky Fortress that came to pick him up. Because the grayer mineral vein was too big, Hyojin had to temporarily put it on the top platform of the Sky Fortress. Fortunately, a lot of watchtowers and sculptures were removed during the renovation. Otherwise, this thing would not be able to be placed. Hyojin had a slight headache. The chakra reaction of the grayer mineral vein was too strong. If it was placed on the top of the Sky Fortress, it would be equivalent to turning on a spotlight for the Sky Fortress. Even if it could hide from ninjas on land, it might not be able to hide from Otsutsuki, samurai on the moon. Looks like I have to renovate the Sky Fortress again. After secretly making up his mind, Hyojin walked into the interior of the Sky Fortress. At this time, Xianglin, Gaara, and Zin, who had been summoned by Hyojin from Mai, all came to greet him. Hyojin first looked at Xianglin up and down. After seeing that the chakra in Xianglin's body was stable and there was no tendency to lose control or go berserk, he moved his eyes to Ziyuan and asked casually, "Was the journey smooth?" He was going to pick up Ziyuan himself, but the grayer mineral vein suddenly appeared, so he had to order the Kazekage puppets of 3 generations to pick up Ziyuan. Ziyuan nodded, then asked curiously, "Sir, is this Sky Fortress also the base of the village?" Here, after a pause, Hyojin said, "This is my private base." "Wow." Ziyuan let out a cry of surprise. Hyojin smiled, then waved his hand at Xianglin and Gaara. "You can leave." "Yes." Xiangli and Iluwa bowed before respectfully retreating. After the two left, Ziyuan moved to Hyojin's side and whispered, "Sir, why does that red-haired girl have Rinnegan in her eye sockets? Put away your curiosity. Come with me to a place first." Hyojin rubbed Ziyuan's head and then walked toward the main power room. "Oh." Ziyuan hurriedly followed him. Not long after, the two came to the main power room. As they approached the main power room, Ziyuan seemed to sense something. Her face suddenly changed, and she pointed to the power room in surprise. "Morio? Morio is inside." First update, please recommend votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1233. Yes, Morio is inside. Hyojin nodded gently, then stepped forward and pushed open the door of the main power room. As the door was pushed open, the evil Morio chakra immediately spread out. Ziyuan's pretty face suddenly became pale, and her body trembled. For her, Morio is the nightmare that she doesn't want to face. It's a natural enemy that she doesn't even want to think about. Once she thinks of Morio, she can't help but think of her mother who died many years ago and all the horrors of Morio. Hyojin didn't urge Ziyuan at this time, but stood quietly at the door of the main power room. After a while, Ziyuan's mood gradually calmed down. After all, she is not the pampered Miko of the land of demons in the original time and space, but a ninja who has received orthodox ninja education in Konoha village and has experienced several battles. So even if her heart is full of fear, she quickly adjusted her mentality. Taking a deep breath, Ziyuan asked, "Sama, you asked me to come here. Is it because of the Morio inside?" Hyojin said, "About the origin of Morio, your mother should have mentioned it to you." Yeah, Ziyuan nodded. Before the last Miko collapsed, she told Ziyuan everything about Morio in detail. So Ziyuan knows that Morio is actually a part of her. Because of this, she is particularly afraid of Morio, because she doesn't want to accept that such an evil and ugly monster turned out to be a part of her. At this time, Hyojin waved to Ziyuan. Don't you want to see what it looks like now? Knowing that Hyojin will not harm her, Ziyuan struggled for a while, and finally summoned the courage to walk to the door of the main power room, and carefully looked inside. Soon, Yuan's vision appeared Shino, who was firmly locked by the seal array. Because they are one, so there is no need for Hyojin to explain. She knew that the sealed Shino is just the carrier of Morio, an existence similar to the Jinchuriki, equivalent to Morio itself. Confirming that Morio has been sealed by Hyojin, Ziyuan stroked her chest and took a long breath. Hyojin said calmly, "Since you know the origin of Morio, then you should know that as long as you are still alive, Morio can't be really destroyed." Ziyuan said, "Anyway, you are here. I am not afraid of anything." Hyojin shook his head and then said, "Release." Bang! As the white smoke dissipated, Hyojin returned to his current appearance. After returning to the Sky Fortress, Hyojin sensed Ziyuan's chakra. He used the transformation technique to change himself from Amatsukumi's Yama back to Naruto's appearance in the village. At this time, he removed the transformation technique and returned to the appearance of Amatsukumi's Yama. Looking at Hyojin in front of her, Ziyuan suddenly exclaimed and then covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes full of disbelief. Hyojin still said calmly, "This is my other identity." Ziyuan had a look of disbelief. "You're the leader of Amatsukumi." At this time, Hyojin slowly took off the devil mask on his face, revealing his face full of cracks. Compared to the secret identity of Amatsukumi's leader, the reason why he used the transformation technique just now was because he did not want to scare Ziyuan as soon as he saw her. As he had expected, Ziyuan turned pale with fright. What happened to your face?" Hyojin smiled and shook his head. Ziyuan immediately realized something and cried out involuntarily, "Could it be that my previous death prophecy has come true? But didn't you promise me that you will be fine?" Hyojin replied, "Things are not what you think, but I am indeed dead now." What? Although she had already realized it, when Hyojin personally admitted that he was dead, Ziyuan still fell into a daze. Even her bright eyes suddenly lost focus. At this time, Hyojin looked at the Morio in the main force room. No one can guarantee that it will be sealed forever. "I'm sorry, Zin. I can't make such a guarantee." At this moment, he said this as a dead person, which was particularly convincing. Because he was dead, naturally he could not guarantee to Ziyuan that the Morio would never escape. Ziyuan was still stunned. It seemed that she had not completely recovered from the shock of Hyojin's death. Hyojin then said, "Everyone has something they don't dare to face. I am no exception. We can choose to be timid, choose to escape, but you can't because the Morio itself is a part of you. This is something you have to face." Ziyuan, who recovered from the shock, shook her head. "No, it's not me. I don't want to become like it." Hyojin smiled. "Idiot, what it looks like, isn't it up to you to decide?" Ziyuan was startled and looked at Hyojin with doubt. Everyone has a dark side in their heart. This is both nature and balance. After a pause, Hyojin then explained, "But the existence of the dark side does not mean that we are dirty, ugly, because it is because of the existence of the dark side that we can understand what evil is, and only by knowing the definition of evil can we suppress it and subdue it." Immediately, Hyojin smiled and patted his chest. "We are the strongest seal of the dark side." Hearing this, Ziyuan fell silent. It's not that she didn't understand this truth. When she heard that Naruto reconciled with the dark side in the real waterfall, she knew that the dark side could actually be subdued and resolved. It's just that the Morio left a deep impression in her heart, causing her a great psychological shadow, so she didn't have the courage to face the Morio like Naruto. Seeing that Ziyuan still didn't have the courage to face the Morio, Hyojin suddenly said, "What if it's for me?" "For you." Hyojin nodded gently. As long as you can subdue the Morio and get back all the power that belongs to the witch, I can be resurrected." Ziyuan suddenly raised her head and stared at Hyojin eagerly. Is this true?" "As long as I subdue the Morio, I can resurrect you?" "Of course." Hyojin nodded and then asked, "So if it's for me, are you willing to give it a try?" Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1234. Of course, Hyojin's resurrection doesn't need Ziyuan's help. He just said that it gives Ziyuan a little motivation, because he knows very well that what Ziyuan lacks is not the ability, but the motivation. As long as there is a strong motivation, the courage will naturally come. And even if it's not for Hyojin's own personal interests, now is indeed the best time for Ziyuan, or the Miko of the Land of Demons, to deal with the dark side of Morio. One must know that even in a sealed state, Ziyuan is the strongest Miko in history who can clearly see the death prophecy. Because the essence of the death prophecy is a high-level use of their own power, so the sealed Miko shouldn't have this ability at all. The fact that Ziyuan can unconsciously perform the death prophecy in a sealed state only shows one thing, that is, the seal imposed by the previous Miko, that is, Ziyuan's mother. Even Ziyuan, who is less than 10 years old, can't completely suppress it. Because a few years ago, when the Akatsuki organization attacked Mai for the first time, Ziyuan launched a death prophecy. Therefore, if even Ziyuan can't solve the problem of Morio, then the probability of Miko-sama being able to solve it in the future will be even lower. Out of these considerations, Kuroda had to urge Ziyuan to give it a try, both publicly and privately. "Okay, I'll try." After learning that Hyojin can be resurrected by solving the Morio, Ziyuan didn't think too long and nodded. Looking at Ziyuan, who is still scared, Hyojin smiled and said, "Don't worry, I'm here." With the giant Tenseigan, Kuroda can extract chakra, so even if there's an accident when Ziyuan is fusing with Morio, causing Morio to take the initiative in the fusion, he can forcibly extract the chakra of Morio from Ziyuan's body. So according to his calculations, as long as everything goes according to plan, even if the fusion fails, it will not endanger Ziyuan's life. "Brother, I will resurrect you." Ziyuan took a step and walked into the power room. Listening to Ziyuan calling him brother for a long time, Hyojin froze for a moment. In the past, Ziyuan called him brother, but later, when he became the village's fifth Naruto, Ziyuan began to call him Sama. Now that Ziyuan addressed him as big brother, it was obvious that she regarded him as a true family member. Hyojin, who recovered, quickly pressed Ziyuan's shoulder. "What are you going to do?" Ziyuan pointed to the power room. Of course, to get rid of the Morio inside. Hyojin was speechless for a while. You still have a seal on your body, and you are not proficient in using the power of the witch. If you go in now, will you get rid of the Morio, or will you be killed by the Morio? Ziyuan froze in place. As if sensing Ziyuan's existence, Shino, who was sealed in the power room, suddenly woke up and shouted at Ziyuan, "Miko-sama, come here, come here." Ziyuan had just mustered up the courage, but after hearing Shino shout, she quickly hid behind Hyojin. "Come with me." Hyojin shook his head helplessly and left the power room with Ziyuan. Soon, the two came to the secret warehouse of the Sky Fortress. From the secret warehouse, he took out the witch's crown, which Ziyuan's mother had given to him for safekeeping, and took out the seal scroll of the witch branch in the country of ghosts, and handed it to Ziyuan. "This is what your mother asked me to keep for you." This witch's crown is a magical item passed down from generation to generation in the country of ghosts, and the scroll records the various sealing and prophecy techniques of the witch branch. Ziyuan first took the scroll and put it in her pocket, then took the witch's crown with both hands with a solemn face and whispered, "I remember, my mother used to wear it." Hyojin said, "It belongs to you now." "Belongs to me?" Ziyuan looked at Hyojin. It not only represents the power of the witch, but also represents the responsibility of the witch. From the moment you wear it, you are the real witch of the country of ghosts. After a pause, Hyojin patted Ziyuen's shoulder again. Whether it is mastering the power of the witch or fusing with the Morio, you have to take it seriously. This is a real life and death event, not a ninja game among the villagers. Ziyuen took a deep breath, then nodded heavily. In the following days, Hyojin carried out special training for Ziyuen. After helping Ziyuen completely remove the seal, the power of the witch contained in Ziyuen's body naturally broke out. Coupled with the help of the magic tool, Witch's Crown passed down from generation to generation in the country of ghosts, the chakra contained in Ziyuen's body has undergone earth-shaking changes, surpassing Xianglin, who was still in the adaptation period. This made Xianglin feel very uncomfortable. She felt that her importance in Hyojin's heart has decreased, so she secretly competed with Ziyuen. And Ziyuen also fulfilled her mother's prophecy, quickly showed the talent of the strongest witch. Without spending much effort, she learned most of the seal and the scroll left to her by her mother. A few days later, Hyojin landed the Sky Fortress on an uninhabited island in the sea, then cut off the chakra transmission between the main power room and the Sky Fortress. He has planned to use the grayer mineral vein to replace the Morio that was about to be integrated by Ziyuen and become the new power source to drive the Sky Fortress. For this reason, he is going to remodel the Sky Fortress and absorb the grayer mineral vein from the top of the Sky Fortress to the inside of the Sky Fortress. In this way, it will be convenient to absorb the chakra and cover the chakra fluctuations of the grayer mineral vein to avoid being detected by Otsutsuki Samurai on the moon. As Hyojin cut off the connection between the main power room and the Sky Fortress, the main power room has completely become a sealing room. Standing at the door of the main power room, Hyojin glanced at Ziyuen, who was wearing a golden crown, and asked, "Are you ready?" "Yes." Ziyuen nodded confidently. After wearing the witch's crown, she felt that her mother was protecting her by her side, and after these days of adaptation, her sealed power of the witch had completely awakened. So at this time, she had a lot of chakra. Not to mention Xiangyu. Even the strength of a human Jinchuriki was slightly inferior. She truly had a tailed beast level of chakras amount. And the confidence that came with power made him no longer so afraid of the Morio in the main power room. Hyojin smiled faintly. "Go in yourself. I'll wait for you outside." A door can't stop Hyojin's attention. There is no difference whether he is outside or inside the door, but he will not accompany Ziyuen in, because this is Ziyuen's own battle. I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1235. Ka. With a muffled sound, the door to the main force room closed again. Hyojin crossed his arms and leaned gently against the door frame. At this time, his expression was calm, and there was not much fluctuation in his eyes. Although he knew that with the entrance of Ziyuen, this battle of life and death that belonged to the Miko was about to begin in the main power room, he was not too worried as he was outside the door. This was not only because the Morio was still in his seal and was extremely weak, but also because the power of the Miko in Ziyuen's body was so strong that even he was slightly surprised. If it was just chakra alone, this would be a battle with a great disparity in strength. However, considering that the confrontation in the soul realm could not be decided by the amount of chakra alone, there were many variables, so he still opened his Tenseigan and silently watched. While he was paying attention to it, he was also secretly thinking about his next plan. The problem that troubled him at the moment, apart from resurrection, was the huge amount of chakra needed for the second ritual. And from the precious information he obtained at the cost of his life last time, the total chakra amount needed to complete the bloodline trap plan was at least 10 times the chakra amount he prepared last time. In other words, if he wanted to steadily complete 2 life upgrades, surpass the sage of the 6 paths who founded the shinobi sect, and become a bloodline trap that was no longer restricted by lifespan like Kagaya, he would need a huge amount of chakra that was comparable to the chakra fruit level. In the last ritual, the chakra that Hyojin prepared was mainly his own reserve in the Yin seal, the outbreak of the 8 inner hidden gates, most of the Morio chakra, a part of the Rimyaka chakra, and a part of the giant Tenseigan chakra. With his strength at the time, combined with the Yin seal and Hashiman Tanku, His total chakra should have been close to the 6th-path level in an instant, but Kuroda was still able to use the full power of the Yin Seal and Hashiman Tanku. But on average, his chakra's amount was far less than the 6th Daos level. Only by adding most of the Moryo chakra, a part of the Dragon Vein chakra, and a part of the giant Tenseigan chakra, on average, the chakra he prepared was barely enough to reach the threshold of 6th Dao class. The result of the ritual proved that he was right, because he had indeed temporarily risen to 6th Daos level. If the chakra's amount that I prepared last time is defined as a unit, then I'll need to prepare at least 10 units of chakra's amount this time to push the ritual to the final step and break through the blood chain net. Hyojin's expression turned cold. It was indeed difficult to prepare 10 times more chakra than the previous ritual, but it was not completely impossible. This is mainly due to the fact that in the last ritual, Kuroda didn't make full use of the 3 chakra sources, Moryo, Ryumyaku, and Tenseigan. The Moryo was slightly better, about 80% was used. Because the Dragon Vein contained a high proportion of natural energy, it needed to be mixed with other chakra, so the ritual at that time used less than half of the Dragon Vein chakra's amount. The giant Tenseigan was deliberately kept by Hyojin for the final use, so the real consumption in the ritual was not much, only about 30%. Therefore, the utilization rate of these 3 chakra sources in the last ceremony was less than half. At this time, looking at the main power room, Hyojin's eyes flashed. If Ziyuan can successfully fuse with the Moryo this time, her strength will have a qualitative change. Even if she can't reach this 6th Daos level, she should belong to the top group below the 6th Daos level. If Ziyuan successfully fuses with the Moryo that is the same as her, she will definitely reap the effect of 1 + 1 is greater than 2. And compared to passive extraction, if Ziyuan takes the initiative to offer chakra to Hyojin, it will make it easier for Hyojin to absorb chakra. Therefore, as long as Ziyuan can succeed this time, she alone is almost equivalent to 1 unit of chakra's amount. After thinking about it, Hyojin continued, if I master the sage arts and can absorb the natural energy between heaven and earth, leaving aside the sage art chakra that I can refine myself, only counting the Dragon Vein chakra that I can use completely, I should be able to barely reach 1 unit of chakra's amount. In this way, Hyojin found that as long as Ziyuan can succeed this time, and he can also master the sage arts, he can collect 4 units of chakra's amount. Then, after fusing with the Moryo is 1 unit, the Dragon Vein that has been completely used is 1 unit. The Sage Arts chakra that he can absorb natural energy and refine is 1 unit. And the giant Tenseigan that has been completely used plus the Hachiman Dunja chakra that has been spread over the entire ritual time is 1 unit. In this calculation, Hyojin is very conservative. Ziyuan and Dragon Vein are not mentioned. The reason why the Sage Arts chakra can meet the requirement of 1 unit is actually very simple. As long as he masters the Sage Arts, Hyojin can be like Naruto in the original time and space. He can accumulate a large amount of natural energy through the Shadow Doppelganger in advance, and then recycle the Shadow Doppelganger in batches. Therefore, as long as he has enough time and preparation, the Sage Arts chakra that he refined with the Shadow Doppelganger should be enough. Although the giant Tenseigan in Hyojin's hand is far inferior to the one in the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, it is, after all, the same Tenseigan chakra. For Hyojin, it is the most efficient chakra. Coupled with the chakra that erupts from the Hachiman Duinjia, it can barely be counted as a unit. As for the Yin Seal in the last ritual, it can't be counted this time, because Hyojin can't spend a few years using the Yin Seal to accumulate chakra bit by bit. Yes, now I have the grayer lode, a new chakra source. Thinking of the grayer lode that he just harvested, Hyojin was happy. Unlike other chakra sources, the grayer lode has no consciousness, so it is very convenient to extract chakra. Even as long as the seal is unlocked, it will continue to release chakra. And the chakra contained in the grayer lode is not bad, and there is not much threshold to use. From all aspects, it is a very high-quality chakra source. After a careful analysis, Hyojin said, "If I extract chakra from the grayer lode regardless of the consequences, then the grayer lode should also be counted as a unit." After a pause, Hyojin raised the corner of his mouth. "Oh, I didn't expect to collect 5 units just like that." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1236. 5 units of chakra is obviously not Hyojin's limit. The arc of his mouth continued to rise as he thought. Naruto has half a QB. Minato, who is sealed in the belly of the Shinigami, also has half a QB, plus 1 tail on my body, 3 tails on Yagura's body, and 7 tails on Fu's body. I can mobilize a total of 4 tailed beasts at my disposal. The tail chakra on the bodies of Naruto, Gaara, and Yagura can be easily mobilized by Hyojin. Although Fu is the Jinchuriki of Takanabu village, but because Takanabu can't protect Fu, Fu spends most of her time in my village. As long as he uses some means, it won't be difficult for Hyojin, Naruto, to extract the 7 tails chakra from Fu. The only troublesome thing is the half-9 tails on Minato's body. Minato died after using the undead demon seal, so his soul is in the belly of the Shinigami, and even the forbidden technique Edo Tensei can't resurrect him. Therefore, the only way to take away the half-9 tails on Minato's body is to use the secret technique of the Uzumaki clan to break the undead demon seal, like what Orochimaru did in the original space-time. Cut open the belly of the Shinigami, and release Minato's soul from the Shinigami's body, and then use the Edo Tensei to summon Minato from the underworld to the Shinigami world. If this is done, then Hyojin can harvest at least 3 units of chakra. A complete QB is far more powerful than the other 8-tailed beasts, and even the QB on Naruto's body is stronger than the other 8-tailed beasts and is obviously stronger than the other 7-tailed beasts. Therefore, a complete 9 tails can be counted as 1.5 units of chakra, and the remaining 1, 3, and 7 tails can be counted as 1.5 units. After all, they are the Jinchuriki, and Hyojin can't disregard their lives and extract chakra without any scruples. In fact, to make the most efficient use of the tailed beasts, the best way is to resurrect the 10 tails, because only when the 9-tailed beasts are fused into one and all the attributes of the chakra will change and become a strong 6-path. And of a 9-tailed beast cut from the 10 tails, except for the most special 9 tails, the power of the other 8 is greatly reduced and is not very strong. This can be seen in the last battle between Naruto and Sasuke in the Valley of the End. At that time, Naruto and Sasuke both had 1 foot into the weak 6-path level thanks to the 6-path deity's gift. They were at the stage where they could not condense the truth-seeking jade at will, but they could directly touch it. Logically speaking, Sasuke at this stage is very close to the complete 6-path level. When he used the earth-shattering heavenly star to seal the 8-tailed beasts other than the 9 tails and absorb their chakra, he should be able to advance from the weak 6-path level to the complete 6-path level and have the ability to condense the truth-seeking jade at will. But the truth is not so. The chakra of the 8-tailed beasts did not increase Sasuke's level at all, so his level in the final battle was still slightly lower than Naruto, who had condensed the truth-seeking jade. From this, it can be seen that the difference between the severed-tailed beasts and the 10 tails is very big. This is not just a difference in size, but also a difference in level. Therefore, except for the special 9 tails, the other tailed beast chakra amount is far less than the dragon vein, grayer mineral vein, and other chakra sources that have absorbed the natural energy from the earth veins. That's 8 units, Hyojin whispered softly. Rumble. At this moment, a loud noise suddenly came from the main force room, and then the whole fortress shook. Hyojin's expression immediately became serious, and he collected his scattered thoughts. Then, he focused on observing the situation in the main force room. The loud noise just now was caused by the Morio breaking away from the layers of seals. After being stimulated by Zioin, the sealed Morio quickly awakened, and it counterattacked Shino, who was its human pillar and completely regained its freedom in the rampage. Seeing this scene, Hyojin narrowed his eyes slightly. The current situation was within his expectations. It could even be said that this was a tactic he specially designed for Ziyuan. The purpose was to stimulate the seal array and Shino's human pillar to consume the Morio layer by layer. Because whether it was counterattacking the human pillar or breaking away from the seal array, it was not easy. Before the final battle, the weaker the Morio was, the higher the chance of Ziyuan winning. It was just that the power of the Morio, when it went berserk, was slightly beyond Hyojin's expectations. He didn't expect that the Morio could still make such a big scene after he extracted chakra so many times. One had to know that this main force room was not an ordinary area. At the beginning of the construction, Hyojin had considered the situation of the Morio going berserk, so he was particularly careful when building it. The walls and the ground were all specially treated materials, and there were many sealing techniques engraved, so it could be regarded as impregnable. But even so, it was almost broken by the Morio just now. Swoosh, swoosh. With two sounds of breaking wind, Xianglin and Ayler hurriedly rushed over and asked in unison, "Sir, what happened just now?" "Shoo." Hyojin made a gesture to keep quiet. Seeing that Hyojin was staring at the main force room, Xianglin and Ayler had to suppress their curiosity and obediently stood on both sides. Rumble. At this time, there was a violent roar coming from the main force room. And in the midst of the roar, a crack suddenly appeared on the wall of the main force room. This crack quickly spread around, and in just a blink of an eye, the crack covered the entire wall. Feeling a huge threat, the sand around Ayler became restless, and a tailed beast chakra slowly overflowed from his body and formed a tailed beast coat on his body. "My, sir!" Xianglin's perception was the best in the shinobi world. At this moment, she clearly felt the terrible chakra in the main force room, and her tone changed. Hyojin didn't say anything, and still silently watched the main force room. At this moment, the situation in the power room was not as critical as Xianglin and Ayler imagined. On the contrary, when Ziyuan completely released the power of the Miko, the Morio that was previously powerful was instantly suppressed. In the vision of Hyojin's Tenseigan, at this time, Ziyuan looked like a goddess. The Miko's crown on her head has now turned into a golden ring, suspended above her head, and her face has also appeared similar to the Sage Mode. Her whole body was dazzling, almost impossible to look directly at. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Hyojin's serious face. There is no suspense. The first one is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1237. The dazzling light suddenly lit up the main power room, making the huge cage that sealed Wang Liang no longer dark and dirty. No, in this dazzling light, Wang Liang howled at the top of his lungs. He felt that his body, chakra, and even his spiritual body were gradually melting in this light, like ice and snow melting under the sun, and filth being burned by fire. As the two sides of a natural enemy, the relationship between the witch and Morio is mutual restraint. When the Morio is stronger, even if the Miko-sama is proficient in sealing techniques, has a palace enchantment, and has a large number of guards, they can only passively defend, and vice versa. When the Miko-sama is in a strong position, the Morio can only wait to be captured. At the moment, there is no doubt that Ziyuan, the strongest witch in history, has the upper hand. Looking at the painful and struggling Morio in front of her, a trace of pity flashed in Ziyuan's eyes. It wasn't until now that she realized that Morio and Miko-sama were one and the same, because she could empathize with Morio's pain. Suddenly, a small light emerged from Ziyuan's body and lingered around her. Looking at these tiny specks of light floating around her, Ziyuan was in a trance. She seemed to see the figures of witches in these specks of light. Immediately, Ziyuan understood. These small light spots are the thoughts left by the witch of the past. Without exception, They all more or less realized the mistake of dividing their dark side and creating the monster Morio. It's just that they couldn't make up their mind to correct this mistake, which led to the disaster of Morio. Therefore, the countless small light spots accumulated from generation to generation are not only the thoughts left by the witch of the past, but also the regret left by the witch of the past. When Ziyuan bravely took this step, even if Morio has not been completely subdued, the witch of the past in Ziyuan's body felt sincerely happy and relieved. In an instant, these small light spots broke one by one, and then these broken light spots turned into a stream of light and merged into Ziyuan's body. Ziyuan was startled for a moment, and then she instantly felt that her Miko power had increased a lot. There is no doubt that in order to correct the mistakes they had made, the previous generations of Miko-sama crushed their last thoughts at all costs, turned the last of their power into pure Miko-sama power, and gave it to Ziyuan. In the blink of an eye, there was only one tiny speck of light left in front of Ziyuan. Ziyuan blurted out, "Mother!" There was no doubt that the tiny spot of light that remained until the end was none other than Ziyuan's mother's thoughts. She slowly said, "Ziyuan, I left this difficult problem to you. As a mother, I'm really not qualified." Hearing her mother's voice again after so many years, Zin burst into tears and sobbed uncontrollably. Ziyuan's mother said gently, "Go. Whether you succeed or fail, you will always be my pride." After that, the tiny light spot belonging to Ziyuan's mother also broke, turned into a stream of light, and merged into Ziyuan's body. "Mother, I will not let you down." Ziyuan immediately wiped away the tears on her face. Finding that Ziyuan's power was still growing, Morio also knew that he had failed this time, and said in a muffled voice, "Damn witch, you win this time, but you wait for me. I will be back." It was not the first time for Morio to be defeated and sealed, so he was not desperate. For him, as long as the Miko-sama continued from generation to generation, his life was almost eternal. And this generation of Miko-sama was strong, but it did not mean that the next generation of Miko-sama would be so strong. He could always find a chance to escape, and even find a chance to devour Miko-sama. What are you going to do?" But soon, Wang Liang stopped clamoring and looked a little surprised, because Ziyuan did not cast a seal on him like the Miko-sama who had defeated him in the past. Instead, she walked toward him step by step. Ziyuan didn't stop and said, "I hate you very much, but this is the only way to get rid of you. Let me be your cage in the future." Morio was stunned for a while, and then he said with a playful smile, "How dare you fuse with me? Aren't you afraid that I will devour you?" Ziyuan said no. Morio's face stiffened, and then he smiled and said, "Then come quickly. My long-cherished wish can finally be fulfilled today. Miko-sama, your power is mine." After that, Morio stared at Ziyuan, but there was no hesitation or timidity in Ziyuan's eyes. His mouth trembled. "Aren't you afraid?" Ziyuan said calmly, "In order to fulfill the last wishes of my mother and the previous Miko-sama, in order to resurrect my brother, I have no choice." This time, Morio finally panicked. He knew very well that Ziyuan was stronger than the Miko-sama he had seen before, and he was in the worst state. If he fused at this time, the one who would disappear completely would definitely be him. But just as Morio was about to say something, Ziyuan, who saw that Morio was strong in appearance but weak in reality, did not give him any chance to speak and instantly sucked him into her body. Then the fusion began. There was no soul-stirring soul battle, and there was no terrible chakra confrontation. The fusion began in an instant and ended in an instant. Morio, the disease that had troubled many generations of Miko-sama, disappeared just like that. Click, the door of the main power room was slowly pushed open, and Ziyuan walked out from inside. Ai Luo, who was on guard, quickly looked at Ziyuan carefully. Xiang Lin asked directly, "Did you get rid of Wang Liang?" "Yes." Ziyuan nodded. Xiang Lin knew how powerful Morio was. That kind of extremely evil chakra was something she had never seen in her life, so she couldn't believe it It's that simple. Ziyuan snorted lightly. It's done in one move. What else is there to say? Hyojin smiled. This result was a bit unexpected, but also expected. As he had judged before, Ziyuan was the best person to correct the Miko-sama's mistake, and Morio had been consumed by him as a chakra battery for so long, and its state had been at a low point. For the two sides who restrained each other, a slight change in strength could change the outcome of the battle, not to mention this kind of disparity between the peak and the low point. So from the moment Ziyuan made up her mind, the fate of Morio was already doomed. No matter how it dealt with it, there was no chance for it to turn the tables. The second update is here. It's going to be a new week soon, and the list will be updated. So please vote for me. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1238. In the conference room of the Naruto building. That's the gist of the situation. After telling the three generations and the other elders about the operation, Kakashi sat down. Grayer's stone. The three generations narrowed his eyes slightly, as if he was recalling something. After a while, he shook his head and said, I have no impression at all. This kind of thing shouldn't have appeared in the shinobi world before. As the elder in charge of intelligence collection in the village, Zhuan Xiaochun echoed, Well, I haven't received any reports or rumors about the Grayer Stone either. Jiraiya said, Even Nagato and the leader of Amatsukami were attracted by this Grayer Stone. It's obvious that this thing is not as simple as it looks. At this time, Tsunade threw a document on the conference table and said, It's indeed not simple. This is the medical report of Kakashi and Guy. Take a look at it yourself. The three generations picked up the medical report and glanced at it. Soon, his brows furrowed. Then, Zhuan Xiaochun and Jiraiya also looked through the medical report. The expressions on their faces became much more serious. Are you kidding? Naturally, he could not help but look at Tsunade. It was not that he did not trust Tsunade, but the contents of the medical report were too unbelievable. According to the description of the medical report, Kakashi and Guy were only 24 years old. Moreover, there were no injuries on their bodies. Even the common areas of strain on the human body were as healthy as teenagers in the puberty period. However, Jiraiya knew very well that Kakashi was now almost 28 years old. How could he be 3 or 4 years younger for no reason? In addition, because he went to the battlefield at the age of 10, Kakashi's injuries were no less than the Sannin. Almost like all the ninjas who had experienced hundreds of battles, there were a lot of internal injuries and strain left in his body. These internal injuries and strain were difficult to completely remove with current medical ninjutsu. With Jiraiya's doubts, the three generations and Zhuan Xiaochun also looked at Tsunade. Tsunade did not care about Jiraiya's doubts. How could I joke about this kind of thing? I have repeatedly confirmed this medical report. The data on it is all real. Facing everyone's gaze, Kakashi gently nodded. After being drenched in the chakra crystal liquid that overflowed from the Grayer mine, I did feel that my body has changed. It seems to be more energetic. After that, I specifically asked Tien. In the legends of his clan, the Grayer mine is also known as the source of life. Legend has it that it has the ability to neural and has the ability to extend life. Tsunade also explained, actually, this isn't something unimaginable. Even the Hashirama was able to do this. The body of chakra of Hajime Jimbo has a strong self-healing ability. Even if he doesn't do anything, the self-healing effect is similar to that of Tsunade, who has released the In seal and used the Hayakuho technique. Therefore, the body of chakra of Hajime Jimbo does not have any internal injuries or strain. However, the number of times that the human body can divide and regenerate is limited. Excessive division and regeneration is not entirely a good thing. Once the number of times that the cells divide and regenerate reaches the limit of the human body, even with the strongest recovery ability, it is impossible to avoid death. The early death of chakra of Hajime Jimbo is most likely related to this. After all, chakra grew up in the Warring States period. It was an era of endless war. Even the children of the various clans had to fight on the battlefield. Therefore, no matter how talented Chakra of Hajim Jimbo is, he has been fighting since he was a child, so he must have suffered a lot of injuries. The young Chakra of Hajim Jimbo Tongue Man may not be very clear about the cost of cell division and regeneration, and the overly strong recovery ability will make him naturally neglect the protection of his body. Over time, the consumption of the number of times that the cells divide will inevitably exceed that of an ordinary ninja. One must know that during the Fourth Shinobi War in the original timeline, Tsunade was split into two by Uchiha Madara, but she recovered afterward and lived well until 20 years later in the era of Homo sapiens. Just think about it. Tsunade suffered such a serious injury and was able to completely recover afterwards. Then, with the recovery ability of Chakra of Hajim Jimbo Tongue Man, as long as he didn't die on the spot in the battle with Madara Uchiha, it is impossible for him to have any injuries. Therefore, as long as the number of cell division does not reach the biological limit, the data on Kakashi's medical report is completely possible. After pondering for a long time, the eyes of 3 generations flashed with emotion. So, it seems that the Stone of Grayer is indeed a treasure. Zhuan Xiaochun couldn't help but ask, Kakashi, can you still find a vein? Without a doubt, Zhuan Xiaochun was also tempted. Kakashi and Kai were still young people in their 20s, and their bodies were at their peak, so experiencing such a thing was only a little emotional. However, the 3 generations and Zhuan Xiaochun were already in their twilight years, and the hidden injuries that they had suffered when they were young were now faintly erupting. Their physical condition was not as good as before, so they were very eager to get a chance to recover. Kakashi shook his head. After arranging for Naruto and the others to retreat, I returned to the canyon once, but it has already turned into ruins. The entire Grayer vein is gone, and I suspect that Amitsukami took it away. Sigh. The 3 generations sighed with regret. Seeing this, Jiraiya said, Sensei, if Amitsukami took it away, we might be able to get some Stone of Grayer from them if we pay some price. The 3 generations nodded and seriously considered Jiraiya's proposal. Jiraiya then said, we also need to investigate the matter of Nagato's eyes turning into Byakugan. With his personality, it is impossible for him to change the Rinnegan into Byakugan for no reason. There must be a reason behind it. Tsunade frowned and said, yes, this is really surprising. Replacing the Rinnegan, which is known as the eyes of the immortals, with a pair of Byakugan, this kind of thing is very strange. And thinking about the incident of Otsutsuki samurai attacking the Hyuga clan and digging out Hayashi's Byakugan, it is very worth pondering. And listening to the discussion of several people, Kakashi remembered Ningxi's abnormal performance in the underground palace, especially the strange ability that destroyed Nagato's flower tree world. Even Nagato was surprised at that time. However, after thinking about it, Kakashi did not mention Ningxi's strangeness at the meeting. If Ningxi was just an ordinary my ninja, then he naturally had to investigate thoroughly. But Ningxi was Hyojin's disciple, the disciple of the village's 5th generation Naruto. And the strangeness of Ningxi's body was most likely related to Hyojin's Naruto. Under such circumstances, he really did not have the right to investigate Ningxi, because compared to him, who was Naruto's agent, Hyojin, as the real Naruto, was obviously more qualified to represent the village. The first update is here, and I beg for recommendation votes on Monday. It's nothing, please everyone. Chapter 1239. While the elders were having a meeting in Naruto's building, Kakashi's and Kaiban's classmates who participated in this mission also gathered together to discuss the Stone of Grayer. Tion sighed and said, I didn't expect to encounter such a thing on my first official mission. Sakura nodded and said, this mission involves Amitsukami and Akatsuki, and the leaders of both sides have appeared. It should be considered an S-class mission, right? Naruto was immediately excited when he heard that. S-class mission? That's great. S-class was the highest standard mission in the village. Not to mention students like them who had just graduated from a ninja school. Even Chunin or Tokubetsu might not be able to complete such a mission. Idiot! Sasuke glanced at Naruto and said angrily. Sakura also said, Naruto, are you an idiot? We didn't complete the mission this time and captured any Akatsuki member alive. No matter what the mission level is, it will only leave a mission failure record on our file. What's there to be happy about? She mentioned the S-Class mission because she hoped that the failure record on the file wouldn't be so glaring. After all, failing an S-Class mission was more or less understandable. Ugh, Naruto scratched his head. Xiaoli, who was pure-minded, didn't care too much about the failure record on the file. He moved his body and said, I don't know what happened to the grayer mineral vein. That thing is so magical. I feel like my body has become a lot stronger. Tion smiled and said, yeah, this is the biggest reward we got from this mission. Like Kakashi and Kai, the classmates who were drenched in the chakra liquid of the grayer mineral vein had more or less gained some benefits. Xiaoli felt that his strength, speed, and reflexes had all improved. Sakura and Tion also felt that their chakra was more than before. This change was more obvious, and they could feel it if they carefully felt it. At this time, Sasuke's eyes were cold, and he subconsciously glanced at Neji, who had not said much. Compared to Xiaoli, Tion, and Sakura, who didn't have the bloodline of Otsutsuki, Sasuke, who has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, has undoubtedly gained more. This is because the chakra of the grayer mineral vein is very similar to the first-generation chakra. Both are of extremely high-quality yang chakra. Therefore, after being drenched in the chakra liquid of the grayer mineral vein, the high-quality yin chakra in Sasuke's body and the high-quality yang chakra in the crystal liquid fused to a certain extent. The result of the yin and yang fusion was the power of the omniscient nature. Therefore, Sasuke clearly felt that his ocular power had increased a lot. He felt that Ningxi should have also gained a lot of benefits this time. In addition, in the battle in the underground palace, Ningxi actually used a technique similar to the Rinnegan Aishinra Tensei and also had the 5th generation Naruto's dragon vein. This made him curious about Ningxi and his competitive spirit. The one who stayed in the end was the immortal from Amatsukami, so I guess the grayer mineral vein was most likely sealed by him or taken away. After a pause, Sakura turned to look at Sasuke. Sasuke, what do you think? Maybe. As a member of Amatsukami, Sasuke casually said. Tion also looked at Ningxi. Ningxi, what do you think? Ahem. Maybe. Ningxi, who knew that the leader of Amatsukami was his teacher, Hyojin, coughed twice and answered ambiguously. Naruto said, Amatsukami is really mysterious. I wonder who they are. Soon, everyone was talking about Amatsukami. Because they were familiar with each other and had no scruples, the atmosphere quickly became lively. Sasuke and Neji inadvertently looked at each other at this time, and immediately, the two of them who had a guilty conscience quickly avoided eye contact. After a while, Ningxi said, I still have something to do, so I'll go back first. Not long after Ningxi left, Sasuke also said, I also have something to do, so I'll go first. After saying that, Sasuke did not care about everyone's reaction, waved his hand, and then walked in the direction where Ningxi left. And looking at Ningxi and Sasuke, leaving one after another, Yu, who has always treated himself as an invisible person, showed a thoughtful expression on his face. On Ningxi's side, on the way back to the tribe, he was still thinking about the Byakugan in Nagato's eye socket in the underground palace ruins. Because he knew the major secret of the Byakugan, so things that were clueless in the eyes of others were very clear to him. Damn it, he must be peeping into the secret of the Tenseigan. The more Ningxi thought about it, the more certain he was, because only the Tenseigan could make Nagato give up the Rinnegan. Otherwise, it would not explain why Nagato replaced the Rinnegan with the Byakugan. At this moment, Ningxi's expression suddenly changed, and he found that someone was following him, so he shouted the moment he activated the Byakugan, Come out! I didn't expect to be discovered so soon. Sasuke said as he walked out from behind a big tree. Seeing that the stalker turned out to be Sasuke, Ningxi was a little puzzled. Why are you following me? Sasuke didn't talk nonsense and asked straightforwardly. I'm a little curious. What kind of technique did you use in the underground palace ruins before? Because it's about the Tenseigan, Ningxi had to keep his mouth shut. I knew you wouldn't tell me. In that case, why don't we have a fight? Sasuke smiled confidently and immediately activated the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Looking at Sasuke's eager expression and the scarlet eyes in his eye sockets, Ningxi felt as if he had returned to the days when he was in the ninja school. At that time, Sasuke was also very serious when facing him. It's just that after graduation, as Sasuke's strength became stronger and stronger, he gradually stopped paying attention to him. Okay, Ningxi agreed subconsciously, but soon he thought of something and shook his head. Forget it. Sasuke's face sank. Hey, are you kidding me? Ningxi explained. There will be opportunities in the future. It's not fair for you to compete with me now. Sasuke froze on the spot. Ningxi didn't say anything more and walked towards the Hyuga clan with a heart full of worries. Damn, are you looking down on me? Sasuke was so angry that he laughed. After having the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, he has never been so underestimated by anyone. Even Orochimaru, one of the Sannin, was defeated by him, so how could he bear Ningxi's almost ignored refusal? Then let me use this pair of Sharingan to show you what is the real meaning of injustice. Whoosh, before his voice fell, Sasuke's figure flashed and rushed towards Ningxi. The second update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. In addition, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1240. Clang, clang, clang. The crisp sound of metal colliding with each other, accompanied by the sharp whistling of the wind, could be heard from the deserted streets, the quiet forests, and the remote alleys. Two incredibly fast figures, like two phantoms, were fighting in the streets and alleys of the village. From time to time, pedestrians on the street stopped in a daze, wondering what the black shadow that just flashed by was. Even the Umbu patrolling in the village, as well as the Uchiha police force responsible for the security of the village, were shocked by the two figures in the guerrilla fight. Obviously, the two people fighting in the guerrilla fight were not bystanders, but Sasuke and Ningxi, who were called geniuses by their respective families at the same time. On the canopy of a big tree, several Umbu members looked at the two people gradually disappearing in the guerrilla fight with different expressions. After a while, one of the Umbu members said, Captain, is it really okay to let them mess around in the village like this? The Umbu captain smiled and said, It seems that they also have a sense of propriety. If it's only Uchiha clan, it's okay for them to come forward and control the situation. But there's also Hyuga Ningxi, who is Naruto's disciple, so it's not easy for them to come forward. In addition, there's another reason that is difficult to say. That is, this Umbu captain has no confidence to successfully stop Sasuke and Ningxi, because the speed of the two people fighting is too fast. An Umbu who looked a little older on the side shook his head and sighed. The kids nowadays are really ridiculously strong. Although they know that the two people fighting in the guerrilla fight are both geniuses of the two great dojutsu bloodline clans, but the feeling of being surpassed by a 13 or 14-year-old boy is not good. At the other end, on the eaves of the roof of a tall building, two Uchiha, wearing police uniforms, stood side by side, watching the guerrilla fight not far away with scarlet eyes. One of the Uchiha said with a smile, Hey, Sasuke is indeed a genius of our Uchiha clan. Even with my Sharingan activated, I can't keep up with his speed. Another Uchiha asked, But they are fighting directly in the village. Isn't it against the rules? It is indeed against the rules. However, Naruto's disciple is also involved. How can we interfere? After a slight pause, he grinned and said, Don't you want to see how Naruto's disciple is defeated by Sasuke? Humph, daring to challenge Sasuke, who has the Manjikyu Sharingan. This Hyuga Ningxi is too naive. The other Uchiha's expression turned serious. This kid is that man's disciple after all. I'm afraid he's not that simple. On a distant street, clang, in the flames of the intersection of ninja tools, the two of them once again crossed each other. Although the contest is fierce, both sides are abnormally restrained, neither randomly using ninjutsu, nor the slightest intention of venting chakra. On the contrary, there seems to be a tacit understanding between the two of them, continuing the contest of taijutsu, ninja tools, and insight in a silent posture. Ningxi is naturally worried about exposing the Tenseigan in the village. He knows very well what it means, so even if he loses the contest, he will never use the Tenseigan. Sasuke's thoughts are even simpler. Even when he fought with Kakashi, he didn't want to use the Manjikyu Sharingan technique. So, it is even more impossible for him to use the Tenseigan technique against Ningxi. Both of them have Kekai Genkai, so this kind of contest of taijutsu, ninja tools, and insight and prediction is exactly what they want. However, as the fight between the two continued, more and more people in the village noticed their contest, and the Uchiha clan and the Hyuga clan also received the news one after another. Along the way, the two of them unknowingly came to the practice field next to the Hyuga clan. At this time, in the practice field, Hinata and Hana are competing with soft punches, while Hayashi and Richa are standing on the sidelines. Although he lost his Byakugan, Hayashi is still an elite jonin who is close to the Kage level. He can roughly grasp the situation of the battle between Hinata and Hana in the field by sound and perception. After noticing that Hinata was suppressed by his sister who is 6 years younger than him, Hayashi shook his head slightly. Richa praised, "Hana is really an excellent child." Suddenly, the expressions of the two brothers changed, and they turned their heads to the outside of the practice field. Swoosh, swoosh, almost at the same time, in the sound of wind breaking, two figures as fast as lightning dashed into the practice field from outside the practice field. After a few rounds of fighting between the stunned Hinata and Hana, they rushed out of the practice field one after another and left. "Who is it?" Hayashi asked hurriedly. Because it was too sudden, Hayashi, who lost his eyes, could not accurately determine the identity of the two people who just entered the practice field. He could only vaguely tell from the sound of wind breaking that the other party's speed was very fast and completely surpassed him. Looking at Ningxi and Sasuke's phantom-like figures, Richa was also shocked. He naturally recognized the intruders at a glance as his son, Ningxi, and the genius of the Uchiha family, Uchiha Sasuke. However, he still could not believe the scene just now. At this moment, Hana, who was in the practice field, asked Hinata, "Sister, was that brother Ningxi just now?" Hinata, who was at a loss, nodded. Yes. Hua asked curiously, "So brother Ningxi is so strong? I couldn't see his movements at all." "Oh yeah, who was the one who was fighting with brother Ningxi?" Hinata answered, "Brother Ningxi's opponent is Sasuke from the Uchiha family." Hua was a little relieved. Oh, it turned out to be the genius of the Uchiha family. Listening to the conversation between Hinata and Hana, Hayashi asked Richa in surprise, "Was it Ningxi and Sasuke who just passed by?" Richa, who had recovered from his shock, quickly replied, "Yes, it was them." Hayashi sighed and said, "Have they grown to such a level?" At this time, the two of them, who had been fighting all the way, passed through the territory of the Hyuga clan, all the way to the river, and confronted each other across the river. Huff! The two of them, who were looking at each other across the river, were now panting together. High-intensity physical combat and ninja combat were not only a test of physical strength, but also a test of insight. Therefore, although both sides did not consume much of Chakra's energy, they still felt very tired. Ningxi thought secretly, "I didn't expect Sasuke's speed to be so amazing. If it weren't for my body adapting to Sensei's Tenseigan, I might not even be able to block one of his moves." Sasuke was also secretly shocked. Damn it, how did his speed and insight improve so much? It's like he's a different person. Almost a week ago, Sasuke saw the whole battle between Ningxi and Suyue, and he knew Ningxi's speed very well, so he was very surprised what Ningxi had done this week to become so much stronger all of a sudden. This feeling was as if he had the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. No, it was even more exaggerated than this. The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1241. The figures of Sasuke and Ningxi in the confrontation were reflected in the sparkling river. Ho! The breeze blew across the river, bringing with it a ripple, causing the reflection of the two of them to sway left and right on the river's surface, up and down, as if they were in some kind of confrontation. The two people separated on both ends of the riverbank maintained a strange silence, staring at each other. After a while, Sasuke, who was breathing evenly, took the lead to speak. Ningxi, you've become interesting just like Naruto, worthy of me taking you seriously. Listening to Sasuke's approval, Ningxi, who had also calmed down his breathing, showed a happy expression on his face. For a long time, his wish has been to catch up with Sasuke and Naruto, and now this wish seems to be about to be achieved, so a sense of satisfaction welled up in his heart. But soon he restrained his complacency, because he knows that his current strength has nothing to do with himself. It is entirely due to the powerful Tenseigan of Sensei Hyojin in his eye sockets. After successfully transplanting Sensei's Tenseigan, his body was passively affected by the Tenseigan, strengthened in all aspects, and his insight and prediction abilities have improved by leaps and bounds. Otherwise, it would have been impossible for him to compete with Sasuke, who has the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. It can be said that Hyojin's Tenseigan allowed him to cross several levels at once, instantly reaching the level of Sasuke and Naruto, giving him the capital to compete with Sasuke and Naruto. Subconsciously, Ningxi looked at his hands again and thought to himself, is this the power of Sensei's Tenseigan? Seeing that Ningxi was still silent, Sasuke curled his lips. It seems that you also have secrets. Did Naruto-sama teach you something? But this is good as well. There's one more opponent worth defeating. After that, Sasuke put away the kunai in his hand, then put his hands in his trouser pockets, turned around, and left. Ningxi was startled for a moment. He didn't expect Sasuke to take the initiative to stop the competition, but he is still thinking about Nagato's Byakugan, so he doesn't have the mood to get entangled with Sasuke. So he also put away his ninja tools, then turned around and walked towards the clan's land. Patriarch Uchiha's mansion. When Sasuke returned home, he ran into his brother Itachi in the corridor. Brother, Sasuke greeted Itachi. Itachi asked casually, I heard that you fought with Ningxi on the street just now. What was the result? Sasuke's face stiffened, and he hurriedly explained, it's not really a competition, it's just a casual gesture. Itachi smiled and said, really, according to the news from the police force, although both sides were very restrained in the competition between Sasuke and Ningxi and did not use any large-scale ninjutsu and taijutsu, it was by no means a casual gesture, as Sasuke said. So when he heard what Sasuke said, Itachi understood that Sasuke definitely didn't win this time. At least he didn't have much of an advantage. After Itachi left, Sasuke's face suddenly darkened. He chose to stop the fight just now because he found that simple taijutsu and ninja tools couldn't do anything to Ningxi at all, because Ningxi's basic skills were the best among his peers. Once he lost his advantage in speed, strength, and insight, it would be difficult to defeat Ningxi, who was proficient in soft fist through taijutsu and ninja tools. Damn it! How did Ningxi suddenly become so strong? During the fight, Sasuke even secretly used the lightning release stimulation method, using the lightning release chakra to stimulate his cells to improve his speed, but he still couldn't grasp the advantage in speed. Not only that, but he also found that Ningxi's insight seems to be above him. This is reflected in the fact that Ningxi can almost instantly see through all his tactical intentions and predict them. The fact that Ningxi can do this only shows one thing. That is, Ningxi has the ability to clearly capture the flow of chakra in his body and the muscle reactions of various parts of his body in a fast-changing taijutsu fight. And this kind of absolute insight is a bit difficult even for his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Could it be that his Byakugan's insight is stronger than my eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Soon, Sasuke shook his head and drove this absurd idea out of his mind. Not to mention his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Byakugan is obviously a level lower than the Manjiki Sharingan. At most, it is comparable to the 3 Magatama Sharingan. In the underground base of the Sound Village. Bang! In a burst of white smoke, a snake suddenly appeared. Yakushi-do, who cast the psychic technique, adjusted the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and then took out a scroll from the mouth of the snake. Not long after, Do came to Orochimaru's room with the scroll, and handed the scroll to Orochimaru, and said, "Orochimaru, Sama, this is the latest information from Satsuki." Opening the scroll, Orochimaru glanced at it slightly, and whispered, "Stone of Grail?" Do said, "Well, according to Satsuki's report, Amitsukami and Akatsuki should have their eyes on this Stone of Grail, and even the leaders of both sides have taken action. Even Yama has come forward." Orochimaru suddenly narrowed his eyes, and had a strong interest in this Stone of Grail that he had never heard of before, because he knew very well that something that could attract an immortal like Yama couldn't be an ordinary thing. Do continued, "Satsuki also mentioned that his body seems to have changed because of the chakra crystal liquid of the Stone of Grail." Orochimaru completely opened the scroll and found that there was indeed a seal at the end. Open. After Orochimaru unlocked the seal on the scroll, with a white smoke rising, several small metal cans that stored cell tissues suddenly appeared on the scroll. Do glanced at it and found that there were a total of 3 metal cans, and immediately smiled and said, "It seems that he also collected the cell tissues of Sasuke and Naruto." Orochimaru also smiled with satisfaction. "He sent Satsuki to my village with the purpose of letting Satsuki get close to Sasuke and Naruto. On the one hand, Satsuki let Satsuki monitor Sasuke and Naruto. On the other hand, it can also facilitate the collection of information about Sasuke and Naruto. And Satsuki obviously did not let him down. Not only did he send important information about the Stone of Grail, but he also immediately sent back the cell tissue samples of himself, Sasuke, and Naruto after noticing the effect of the Stone of Grail on himself. After giving the 3 metal cans to Do, Orochimaru licked his lips and said, "Immediately analyze these cell tissues. I want to find out what the Stone of Grail is for, why Yama and Nagato have their eyes on it." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who tipped today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1242. In terms of cell research, Orochimaru was not much worse than Hyojin. Many of Hyojin's technologies actually originated from Orochimaru. It was just that Orochimaru was not as focused as Hyojin, and he was distracted in too many other fields. Therefore, in the field of cell cloning, Hyojin's disciple was overtaken. But despite this, Orochimaru was still the authority in cell research. CU, the modulator who could freely activate the Sage mode, was the best proof of his technology. Therefore, after receiving the cell samples sent back by CU, Do, who was Orochimaru's experimental assistant, quickly got the results. After handing the experimental report to Orochimaru, Do bowed and reported, "Master Orochimaru, just like what CU said, Naruto and Sasuke's cell tissues have undergone a lot of changes. There seems to be an additional young attribute of chakra in chakra." After taking the experimental report from Do, Orochimaru read it carefully, and his brows gradually furrowed. After a moment, Orochimaru ordered, "Bring me Yamato's latest medical report." Do immediately brought Yamato's medical report. After comparing the 2 reports, Orochimaru's brows not only did not relax, but they also furrowed even tighter. From the report, it was obvious that after being doused with the chakra crystal liquid that overflowed from the Greer mineral vein, CU, Naruto, and Sasuke's cell activity had greatly improved. Among them, CU and Sasuke's improvement was the most significant. Because Naruto's cell activity was already very high, the extent of the improvement was not as exaggerated and eye-catching as CU and Sasuke's improvement. And from the specific data comparison, it was obvious that the chakra of the Greer mineral vein was similar to the first-generation chakra. They were both yang escape chakra that contained a large amount of life force. Of course, this alone was not enough to make Orochimaru frown. What really puzzled Orochimaru was that there was an additional type of chakra in Sasuke's cell tissues that he had never seen before. This special kind of chakra obviously did not belong to the 7 attributes of yin, yang, and 5 elements, which are chakra. Seeing that Orochimaru was staring at Sasuke's report in silence, Do said, "This strange chakra should be the bloodline boundary chakra formed by the fusion of 2 attributes of chakra." Yes, Orochimaru gently nodded. He also came to this conclusion, but this strange chakra does not belong to any of the bloodline boundary that he had seen before. It must be known that as one of my Sannin, he has experienced 2 shinobi wars and is addicted to human experimentation. Even if he has not seen all the bloodline boundary in the shinobi world, he has at least seen more than 80% of the bloodline boundary in the shinobi world. Therefore, when a type of chakra that he had never seen before appeared in front of him, it naturally aroused his curiosity. Do continued to analyze. From the attribute point of view, this chakra seems to be the fusion of yin release chakra and yang release chakra, but it seems that there is no such bloodline boundary in the shinobi world. This little guy Sasuke really keeps bringing me surprises. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes slightly, and a greedy light flashed in his eyes. Obviously, he doesn't know that once high-quality yin attribute chakra and high-quality yang attribute chakra fuse, it will produce a magical chakra called Power of Genji. Power of Genji is not a simple bloodline boundary, but a very special kind of power. Its most concrete manifestation is the Rinnegan, which is known as the Eye of the Sage. However, because he has been suffering from the Manjikyu Sharingan, he has never been able to obtain high-quality yin release chakra, so the power of Genji is a very strange subject for Orochimaru. After a long time, Orochimaru sighed softly. It seems that we have missed another treasure. Knowing that Orochimaru is lamenting about the grayer load, Kuroto asked, "Orochimaru, do you need me to arrange someone to investigate it?" Orochimaru shook his head. "No need. Since the sage has personally taken action, the grayer load must have fallen into the hands of Amatsukami. Kuroto is very clear about the power of Amatsukami, let alone the leader of Amatsukami Yama. He doesn't even have the confidence to defeat Homusubi of Amatsukami. Therefore, once the grayer load falls into the hands of Amatsukami, he can only give up on it." Next, Orochimaru casually flipped through the combat data of Naruto and Sasuke that Suyue sent back together with the cell data. Because they're in the same class, Suyue can often spar with Naruto and Sasuke. So during this period of time, he comprehensively collected the combat data of Naruto and Sasuke in terms of strength, speed, reflexes, and other aspects. He summarized them one by one and sent them back to the Sound Village. First, he opened Sasuke's combat data, and Orochimaru was amazed as he looked at it. Based on the data on paper, Sasuke's strength has completely surpassed him, a Mai Sannin, and is one of the top few in the whole ninja world. Regarding this, he is not too surprised. After all, he has personally experienced Sasuke's strength. If I can get Sasuke's body, maybe I can immediately prepare for the ceremony. Orochimaru's eyes lit up. Like Kuroto also participated in and prepared for the ritual of Danzo. If it was only limited to the first 2 stages of the ritual, then the information he had would be no less than Kuroto. It's just that the problem of soul fusion has not been solved for a long time, so the ritual has been delayed. Still thinking about Sasuke, Orochimaru subconsciously turned to the page that recorded Naruto's combat data and was stunned. Looking at the combat data collected by Suyue, Naruto's value is actually higher than Sasuke's, and after entering the Nine Tails Chakra mode, Naruto's value will soar, exceeding the limit of a normal ninja, and completely becoming a monster. Suyue also specifically mentioned at the end that Sasuke seems to have been looking for an opportunity to challenge Naruto, but it seems that he is not ready, so he has not made a move. At this time, Do said, "I was as surprised as you when I saw Naruto's combat data. That kid has really grown up." recalling that Naruto couldn't even learn doppelganger at the beginning, but now he is even stronger than Sasuke, the favored son of heaven. Orochimaru has an inexplicable sense of absurdity in his heart. After a while, he asked Do, "Have you contacted Naruto recently?" Do shook his head. "After defecting from a ninja school, I haven't contacted Naruto again, but I heard that Naruto has been personally guided by the 5th Hokage recently." The first update is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1243. Hearing that Naruto has been guided by Hyojin recently, Orochimaru grinned. "Kuroto is really patient." Do smiled. "Actually, Naruto is still very talented." Orochimaru glanced at Do. "I remember that you have also guided Naruto before." Well, although the little guy's control of chakra is not meticulous enough, and he is not a genius like Sasuke, but his physique is very good, and he has great potential. Do gave a fair evaluation. He is very clear that the reason why Orochimaru doesn't like Naruto is that Naruto is not a genius like Sasuke, and Orochimaru has always been impatient with people who are not smart. But he has a deep understanding of Naruto. It is clear that Naruto is not a fool, but he is a little more careless and doesn't care too much about the details. After all, he is from the Uzumaki clan. It is natural that his physique is good. As he said, Orochimaru smiled slightly. Do asked curiously, "Orochimaru-sama?" Orochimaru, who was sitting in the high-back chair, tilted his head, supported his chin with his hand, and said leisurely, "If I remember correctly, it was Jiraiya and Kakashi who guided Sasuke?" Do nodded. "Well, Jiraiya is Sasuke's teacher, and Kakashi is Sasuke's jonin. In that case, I won again." After a pause, Orochimaru smiled and said, "Jiraiya, that fool. Even if he found a genius like Sasuke, he is still not as good as me in teaching disciples. Kakashi is a disciple of 4 generations and is regarded as Jiraiya's disciple. So whether it is Jiraiya as a teacher or Kakashi as a jonin, Sasuke is regarded as Jiraiya's disciple." Orochimaru personally guided Naruto. Hyojin and Do are also Orochimaru's disciples. So from this point of view, Naruto is obviously a disciple of Orochimaru, and Naruto now suppressed the genius Sasuke, which is naturally equivalent to Orochimaru's disciple surpassing Jiraiya's disciple in this contest. Do flattered. "You actually surpassed Jiraiya long ago. His disciple became Naruto. Aren't you the same?" Orochimaru raised the corner of his mouth and smiled proudly. In fact, it was not until Hyojin became Naruto that he completely let go of the obsession of destroying Mai, and his emotions were vented. For him, Naruto is far less tempting than eternal life, but he can do without it. But if the old man refuses to give it, then he will be very annoyed, so he is very proud of the fact that Hyojin defeated Kakashi and became a yondaime. Thinking of Hyojin, Orochimaru asked again, "Is there any news about Kuroto recently? He took the Edo Tensei from me. It's impossible that he didn't do anything at all." Do said, "According to the information sent back before, shortly after Yondaime brought him back to Mai, he went into retreat on the grounds of developing ninjutsu. Now the affairs of the village are completely under the responsibility of the advisory elder group, and the information sent back by Do also specifically mentioned that Yondaime seems to have transferred the dragon vein to Hyuga. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. He didn't know what kind of contract Hyojin signed with the dragon vein, so he couldn't judge whether Hyojin, as the dragon vein Jinchuriki, would die like a normal Jinchuriki after cutting the dragon vein. But after connecting the clues that Hyojin took the Edo Tensei scroll from him and immediately went into retreat after returning to the village, he suddenly had various guesses. Do immediately understood, bowed, and said, "I'll let Do investigate the current situation of Yondaime. Tell Do to be careful." Orochimaru nodded, and then said a few words. He had a feeling that after becoming Naruto, Hyojin seemed to be planning something, and after Hyojin asked him for the Edo Tensei, this feeling became stronger. It's just that the last attack on Sasuke didn't succeed, and now his temporary body had begun to rot, so he didn't have too much energy to investigate what Hyojin was planning. Putting away his scattered thoughts, Orochimaru turned his attention back to the battle data sent back by Do. These two kids, the more he studied the battle data, the more Orochimaru felt that the two teenagers, Sasuke and Naruto, were different. It was reasonable to say that at the age of 13 or 14, there should be no ninja who could surpass Do, who was cultivated by him. But Sasuke and Naruto not only surpassed Do in all aspects, but also seemed to have a lot of room for growth. This growth rate obviously violated the experience and judgment he had accumulated for decades. Such a kid can no longer be described as a genius. It's simply, as if thinking of something, Orochimaru grinned and said, "It's simply the child of prophecy that Jiraiya often talks about." Then, Orochimaru focused his attention on the Nine Tails chakra mode mentioned in Do's information. A technique that can suppress Susanoo. Orochimaru hadn't seen Naruto's Nine Tails chakra mode with his own eyes, but he knew the power of the Manjikyu Sharingansu. Nine Tails chakra mode could easily break Sasuke's Susanoo. This alone was enough to show the power of this technique. After a while, Orochimaru asked, "Kimimaro and the others are back?" Do replied, "Not yet. There seems to be a problem with the previous intelligence." After they arrived at the scene, they did not successfully find the rumored storage hall of the Whirlpool clan. Now they are rushing to the cemetery area of the old site of the Whirlpool Kingdom, looking for a new target of impure earth reincarnation and reinvestigating the location of the masked storage hall of the Whirlpool clan. Obviously, Hyojin wasn't the only one who was eyeing the half of Nine Tails in Minato's body. In fact, Orochimaru had been thinking about it for a long time. But unlike Hyojin, he didn't just want a half of Nine Tails. He was actually more concerned about Minato's soul. After completing the Edo Tensei, Kuroto has always wanted to use the Edo Tensei on Yondaime-sama, who defeated him and won the position of Hokage. Kuroto wanted to use the Edo Tensei on Yondaime-sama, turning this former rival into a puppet in his hands just like Hashirama and Hashirama. However, Minato's soul was sealed in the stomach of the Shinigami, which made him unable to succeed. He had found a method to break the corpse demon seal in an ancient book, but in addition to the ritual, he also needed a special mask of the Uzumaki clan as a medium. According to the ancient book, the mask of the Shinigami was stored in a secret mask storage hall, so he sent his most powerful subordinates, Kimimaro, Haku, Yugo, and Yamato, to find a mysterious storage hall that only existed in the rumors. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Chapter 1244. Seeing the solemn expression on Orochimaru's face, Do quickly said, "Orochimaru-sama, don't worry. With Kimimaro and the others taking action, the mission will be completed smoothly." Orochimaru urged, "Tell them to hurry." "Yes." Do bowed and nodded, then asked in confusion, "Why are you in such a hurry?" Orochimaru waved his hand impatiently, and, after a moment of silence, he explained, "I have a feeling that something big is about to happen in the shinobi world. I must recover as soon as possible." Do adjusted his glasses. "Something big?" "You will know soon." Orochimaru didn't explain any further, because this is more of his intuition. Of course, this intuition of his is not groundless. Many years ago, he learned from Jiraiya that the great toad sage of Mount Myaboku, one of the 3 holy lands of the shinobi world, had a prophecy related to the survival of the shinobi world. In the prophecy, the shinobi world is about to usher in a major change, and only by finding the child of prophecy can the shinobi world be protected and bring peace to the world. This is also the reason why Jiraiya traveled the shinobi world looking for the child of prophecy. Before, he didn't pay much attention to the prophecy of the great toad sage, because he thought that the prophecy was too sensational. Whether the shinobi world will be destroyed or not, it's up to the 5 great shinobi villages to decide, and it has nothing to do with the child of prophecy. Until the appearance of Akatsuki and Amatsukami, more and more strong shinobi appeared in the shinobi world, and not long ago, it was revealed that the leader of Amatsukami, Yama, was a sage on the same level as the legendary sage of Six Paths. At this time, he suddenly realized that the shinobi world that he was originally familiar with has become more and more strange, as if he is really at a crossroads. Coupled with the recent activity of the Otsutsuki clan on the moon, the appearance of the Greer mine, the exaggerated growth of kids like Sasuke and Naruto, and Nagato's inexplicable transformation into a Byakugan for no reason, he became more and more certain that something big is about to happen in the shinobi world. After sending Do away, Orochimaru, who still couldn't calm down, slowly walked towards his laboratory. Glancing at the embryo that was developing in the incubator, He hesitated for a moment, then decisively pressed the red button next to the incubator. Gurgle. In an instant, the nutrient fluid in the incubator was completely drained. Following that, a large amount of killing gas was injected into the incubator, killing the cells and tissues inside. There is no doubt that the embryo, just now, is the new body that Orochimaru prepared for himself. He had used all the results of his research on the moon of the 6th lunar year on this embryo. If there were no accidents, it would be as powerful as the moon of the 6th lunar year. Before, he was full of expectations for his new body, but after receiving the cell samples of Sasuke and Naruto, as well as the combat data, he suddenly lost interest in this new body. Turning to the embryo editing room, Orochimaru began a new embryo editing with a crazy expression. This time, he wants to inject the cell tissues of Naruto and Sasuke on the original basis. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In a burst of wind, the four people arrived at the old site of the Vortex Village. Looking at the broken walls around, Kimimaro carefully identified the direction, then pointed to a mountain not far away. The tomb that my built should be in that direction. Let's go. Okay. The other three nodded. Soon, the group of four passed through the ruins of the Vortex Village and came to a simple tomb not far from the village. Although it is a tomb, it is not accurate. At most, it can only be regarded as a place to collect and bury corpses. There is neither a tombstone nor a proper grave. The destruction of the Uzumaki clan occurred during the reign of 3 generations. At that time, there was no Hashirama, and the Sekimai had already lost the ability to suppress the shinobi world. Although the first and second shinobi wars ended in victory, it also greatly consumed Mai's vitality, which made other shinobi villages realize the weakness of Mai. At the same time, during this period, the news that the Uzumaki clan seal can perfectly restrain the tailed beast was spread to all the shinobi villages. In the era without Hashirama, Uchiha and Madara, tailed beasts were undoubtedly the secret weapons of each village. Therefore, the seal of the Uzumaki clan seriously threatened the other shinobi villages except for Mai. And because of the special physique of the Uzumaki clan, not only do they live long lives and are powerful, but most of them also have a bad temper. Disdaining all other shinobi clans, their abnormal sealing techniques, and their alliance with Mai, the head of the 5 great shinobi villages, made them completely unaware of the approaching danger. They didn't actively launch diplomatic mediation with other shinobi villages, and they didn't pay attention to the rumors about the threat of their sealing techniques. Ninja attacks are often sudden and fatal. Although Uzumaki village is powerful, after all, there's only one shinobi clan, and the number of shinobi is limited. At that time, there were as many as 3 or 4 shinobi villages participating in the attack, almost covering the east, north, and south of a land of whirlpools. Among them, there were not only big shinobi villages such as Mist, Cloud, and San Crypsis, but also medium-sized shinobi villages such as Takagunen, which gathered thousands of elite shinobi. After the attack, the Uzumaki clan naturally asked Mai for help. At that time, if Mai chose to rescue them, he would directly face 3 or 4 shinobi villages, which would immediately trigger the 3rd shinobi war. Therefore, there was a serious disagreement on the issue of whether to rescue the Uzumaki clan or not, and they didn't immediately send a rescue force. But before the village could reach a consensus, the news of Uzumaki village being breached came. The powerful strength of the Uzumaki clan was also reflected at this time. Although they were defeated by several shinobi villages, they weren't completely wiped out. Under the cover of the elite clansmen, many women and children escaped. When the troops sent by Mai finally arrived at Uzumaki village, there was only a devastated battlefield and corpses everywhere, so they could only simply collect the corpses and withdraw to Mai. Because Mai didn't send support in time, the fleeing Uzumaki clansmen either hid in the land of grass like Xiang Lin's mother, or hid in the land of rain like Nagato's mother. Even if they had to endure harsh criticism and abuse, almost no one went to Mai to seek refuge. A shinobi clan as glorious as Thousand Hands and Uchiha disappeared from the stage of the shinobi world. Here's the first chapter, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes. Chapter 1245. The biggest impact that the destruction of the Vortex Tide Village had on Mai was the Nine-Tails Rebellion. If the Vortex Tide Village had not been destroyed, the leader of the Maelstrom clan would have personally rushed to Mai to take charge of the Nine-Tails Rebellion, considering that the suppression of the Nine-Tails Rebellion would have been at its lowest point. On that night, if the Maelstrom clan's leader, who had reached the Kage level and specialized in sealing techniques, and with the help of 4 generations Flying Thunder God technique, it would not have been easy for Obsidian to set off the Nine-Tails Rebellion by himself. Perhaps even Obsidian himself would have fallen into the trap. If he was really imprisoned by the sealing technique, which could suppress the tailed beast-level chakra, Obsidian might not even be able to use Kamui to escape. However, there were not so many ifs in reality. The root cause of the Nine-Tails Rebellion was the death of the first generation, which led to the extinction of the wood release in Mai. After the destruction of the Vortex Tide Village, they lost the support of the Maelstrom clan. In the end, Naruto's ability to control the tailed beast declined like a cliff. This was the root cause of the Nine-Tails Rebellion. From this, it could be seen that there seemed to be a hand behind the scenes that had been secretly weakening Mai's strength. For example, the inexplicable rebellion of the Golden Horn and the Silver Horn brothers on the Armistice Agreement not only caused Cloud Village to lose the second-generation Lei Ying, but also caused the second-generation Naruto, who wouldn't sign the agreement, to be trapped in a tight encirclement. In the end, in order to protect his disciple, he died in a foreign land. Judging from the situation at that time, Cloud Village still had 3 generations Lei Ying, who was stronger than the second-generation Lei Ying. On my side, there was also the Maelstrom Mito, the human pillar of the Nine Tails. Even if the Gold Horn and Silver Horn brothers succeeded for the time being, they would not be able to escape the fate of being dealt with later. Moreover, with the strength of the 2 brothers, even if they had the advantage of sneak attacks and noble artifacts, in the end, they could only perish together with the second-generation Naruto. They did not have the ability to resist the joint suppression of Lei Ying in my village. Therefore, the motive of their rebellion was very suspicious. It was very likely that they were bewitched by someone and used as a tool. The destruction of the Vortex clan was also very suspicious. It is not a secret in the shinobi world that they are good at sealing techniques. They survived the Warring States period for thousands of years, but when the Tokugawa and Tokugawa Sannin died one after another, and the 3-generation Sannin's prestige was low, Mai's strength was on the decline, but they were quickly annihilated by a wave of sealing techniques. The traces of human intervention were even more obvious than the sudden rebellion of the Golden Horn and Silver Horn brothers. Of course, this was also directly related to the fact that when the Tokugawa Sannin was still alive, Mai's life was too smooth. At that time, Mai was able to make the rules of the shinobi world and distribute the tailed beasts as if they were objects. During that period of time, there was no such thing as crisis, which led to the new generation of Mai Sannin not being sensitive to crisis. And with the death of the second-generation Naruto, who lived through the Warring States period, The three-generation Sannin who grew up in a peaceful era didn't have the strength of the Tokugawa Sannin, nor the experience of facing complicated situations like the second-generation Sannin, which naturally gave the mastermind behind the scenes the opportunity to act. The four ninjas of sound moved very quickly, and the corpses in the call were dug out one by one. Because of the war, most of the skeletons were incomplete, coupled with the fact that a long time has passed. Some of the poorly preserved skeletons have completely turned into bones, so it is impossible to distinguish the identity of these skeletons just by looking at their appearance. Fortunately, Kimimaro was a member of the Kagaya clan, so he was very familiar with skeletons. Although he couldn't determine the identity of the skeletons, he could determine the strength of the deceased based on the strength of the skeletons. After a while, Kimimaro pointed at one of the skeletons and said, "Let's start with this one. He should be the strongest among these people." Yamato nodded, then collected some bones from the skeletons, while Yugo took out a sacrificial offering that had been prepared long ago. Soon, Yamato, who had finished his preparation, began to make hand seals and shouted, "Edo Tensei technique." Walala, as a gust of wind blew, countless talismans from the underworld wrapped around the sacrificial offering, causing it to suddenly sit up. Then a heart-wrenching scream came from the sacrificial offering. Then it slowly stood up and turned into a middle-aged man with red hair. Success! Yamato heaved a sigh of relief. Although he was already very familiar with this technique, he still couldn't help but feel nervous every time he used it. Obviously, not everyone was like Second Sama and Orochimaru, who could ignore ethics and use unscrupulous means to pursue the secret of the forbidden technique. At this time, Kimimaro came in front of the Edo Tensei technique. From the color of the hair and the clothes on his body, it was obvious that he was a member of the Uzumaki clan, and he wasn't an ordinary one either. He was a ninja. After confirming the identity of the person, Kimimaro asked indifferently, "Where is the storage hall for the Shinigami mask?" The Uzumaki who was affected by the Edo Tensei technique looked dull, as if he didn't hear Kimimaro's question. Kimimaro frowned and immediately said to Yamato, "Relax some restrictions." Yamato made a hand seal. Hiss! When Yamato finished making the hand seal, the Uzumaki who was affected by the Edo Tensei technique suddenly emitted a burst of steam, and his dull eyes gradually recovered. Seeing this, Kimimaro asked the same question again. The Uzumaki shook his head and simply replied, "I don't know." Kimimaro glanced at Yamato, and seeing Yamato nod slightly, he knew that the Uzumaki didn't lie. After pondering for a moment, Kimimaro asked, "Tell me all the clues you know about the storage hall." The Uzumaki shook his head again. "I'm just an ordinary chunin. I don't know the secrets of the clan." Hearing this, Kimimaro's face sank. Kuroda wasn't surprised by this answer. Just like not everyone in Konoha knows the location where the Box of Bliss is sealed, some confidential matters are often only known to the patriarchs and elders, or the clansmen who are directly involved in the matter. It's just that the Uzumaki Chunin in front of him was the strongest Uzumaki in the graveyard. If he didn't know about it, then the other Uzumaki clansmen buried here wouldn't know either. This was because the bodies of the ninjas themselves were a source of information. When the ninja villages annihilated the Uzumaki village, they had obviously taken the bodies of the strong Uzumaki clansmen with them. The ones left behind were either too broken or too weak, so there was no need to take them away. Most of the bodies in the graveyard belong to this category. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, I want to thank the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you all. Chapter 1246. Without hesitation, Kimimaro ordered, "Choose another one." When it comes to Orochimaru's orders, Kuroda has never been one to discount them. So even if he knows that the chances are very slim if he continues to try, he will still try his best. Yamato didn't say anything and asked, "Which one do you want?" Kimimaro came to the pile of remains they had dug up. When he was about to choose another one, Yugo and Haku's gazes trembled as they looked in a certain direction. "Someone is coming. About 5 or 6 people." Yugo and Haku immediately gave a warning. Whoosh! As soon as they said that, a series of whistling sounds came from afar. Then, 6 figures landed on the hill and lined up under the moonlight. After seeing who they were, Kimamaro's expression became serious. It was the Mist Squad and Zetsu, who were wearing the Akatsuki Red Cloud uniform. The Mist Squad had one more person than before. In addition to Beepod Juzo, Dry Persimmon, Ghost Mermaid, Haku, and Lotus, there was also a ninja with long green hair and 2 strangely shaped swords on his back. Hey, aren't they the kids from the Sound Ninjas? After curling her lips, Lotus looked at Kimamaro and said, "It's been so long. Why aren't they dead yet?" Kimamaro's face was cold, and a bone blade came out of his palm. The other 3 of them were also on guard. The sudden appearance of the Akatsuki was out of their expectation, and they were caught unprepared. Ghost Mermaid glanced at the Uzumaki clan member who was revived by Yamato's impure earth reincarnation and said, "Hey, it seems like someone is thinking the same thing as us." Whoosh! Beepod Juzo pulled out the beheading blade from his back and pointed it at the 4 ninjas in the distance. Moreover, they are 1 step ahead of us. A few years ago, the Mist team had fought against the Sound Ninjas. Later on, because of the sudden appearance of the first generation and second generation's dirt body, the intense battle between the 2 sides was interrupted. However, that battle had left a deep impression on Beepod Juzo. At that time, the 4 ninjas were just a group of kids, but they were barely able to resist the elite Jonin. Now a few years have passed, and the kids have grown into a group of teenagers. Among them, Kimamaro and Haku showed their brilliance in the last Chunin exam, as well as the mission of pretending to be members of Amatsukami. Therefore, Kuroto didn't underestimate the 4 ninjas and regarded them as strong opponents. Glancing at the tomb area, Zetsu also understood that the 4 ninjas were inquiring about something from the Uzumaki clan through the Edo Tensei method, and the biggest secret related to the Uzumaki clan at the moment is undoubtedly to crack the corpse demon seal, unseal the soul of Yondaime Hokage, and extract the half of the QB sealed in the soul of Yondaime Hokage. So, Zetsu said, Orochimaru is really not afraid of death. We didn't find trouble with him, but he came to die. Obviously, the Akatsuki organization has already found out about the secret of Orochimaru behind the Sound Village. It's just that the existence of Amatsukami took up too much of the Akatsuki organization's energy, so most of the time, the Akatsuki organization could only choose to stay dormant. They couldn't spare too much energy to deal with Orochimaru, so the traitor Orochimaru has been free until now. After confirming that there were only 6 people and that the leader of the Akatsuki organization wasn't present, Kimamaro said coldly, "I'll give you one last chance. If you leave now, I can pretend that I didn't see you." The green-haired ninja, who just joined the Mist Squad, pulled out the 2 swords on his back. "Why are you talking so much with these kids, since they're hindering us? Can't we just kill them?" On the side, Hazuki said in a deep voice, "Raiga, these aren't ordinary kids. There is no doubt that this new ninja who joined the Mist Squad is not just anyone, but the Black Ho Raikaji who managed to escape together with Beepod Juzo and Watermelon Mountain Kagami during the Third Shinobi World War." Zetsu said, "Since they are also after 9 tails, then there is no room for negotiation. Let's do it." Kimamaro also said, "Leave no one alive." Boom, boom, boom. In an instant, the 2 sides began to fight for the information on how to crack the ghoul sealing seal in the graveyard, in a remote forest in the northwest of the land of whirlpools. Hyojin stopped and looked at a decaying temple in front of him. He asked a white-haired old man who had the same face as him, "Is this the place?" The white-haired old man said with a sigh, "Hey, it's already so dilapidated." As soon as he heard the old man's sigh, Hyojin knew that he came to the right place, so he smiled and said, "As long as people are still alive, this is nothing." "Yes." The old man nodded, then looked at Xiang Lin with a gentle gaze. This old man who had the impure earth body like Hyojin was not an ordinary person. He was the actual ruler of the Uzumaki village, the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan. It was the mist who took away the body of the Uzumaki clan's patriarch, but later the mist couldn't find anything in the body, so they hurriedly buried it. Because no one knew that the 4 generations Naruto would use the undead demon seal to seal 9 tails. Whether it was Madara Uchiha who secretly controlled the mist at that time, or the leaders of the Mist Village, they didn't pay much attention to this matter. Except for an old report piled up in the archives, almost everyone forgot about it. Hyojin also found a report on the disposal of the body of the Uzumaki patriarch through Yagura, the 4 generations Mizukichi. After several twists and turns, he finally found the remains of the patriarch. When the Uzumaki patriarch first came out of the impure earth Tensei, the old man was not as easy to talk to as he was now. The grumpy old man sealed himself with a seal on the spot. In this almost rogue way, he easily got rid of the control of Xianglin. Just when Hyojin secretly had a headache on how to deal with this grumpy old man, the Uzumaki patriarch suddenly found that the impure earth Tensei turned out to be a red-haired Xianglin, and immediately lifted the seal on himself. After confirming Xianglin's identity as an Uzumaki patriarch and discovering Xianglin's exaggerated chakra and terrifying Rinnegan, the old man immediately determined that Xianglin was the only hope to revive the Uzumaki patriarch, so he immediately became kind. His attitude changed so fast that Hyojin was a little surprised. Soon, Hyojin walked into the dilapidated storage hall and came to a wall full of Shinigami masks. Counting casually, he found that there were a total of 27 different Shinigami masks hanging on the wall. So he asked the Uzumaki patriarch, "Which mask is the real one? Which one is the real one?" Glancing at Hyojin, the Uzumaki patriarch said, "Of course they are all real. Why would they put the fake one up there? The first one is here, asking for recommendation votes, monthly votes." Chapter 1247. Are they all real? Hyojin was stunned for a moment. Then, the indifferent expression on his face immediately became much more solemn. As far as he knew, the death mask itself was a very strange artifact. Like a bridge, it was a powerful medium that could communicate with the death god. Therefore, if the 27 death masks hanging on this wall with different appearances and expressions were all real, wouldn't it mean that the Whirlpool clan had established a contract with the 27 death gods? This is too much. Xianglin seemed to realize this problem as well. She looked surprised. The Whirlpool clan leader smiled proudly. "Little Xianglin, this is not surprising. Our clan has a strong vitality that far exceeds that of ordinary people, and we can squander a large amount of chakra at will. Therefore, we have a unique advantage in developing all kinds of sealing techniques. Isn't it just seeking death? Just do it with all your might." Kuroto cursed inwardly. The Whirlpool clan leader's meaning was very clear. The Whirlpool clan had both the talent and the ability to seek death. Therefore, after generations of seeking death, the accumulation naturally could not be underestimated. After all, for others, a careless mistake could cost them their lives. However, the strong vitality of the Whirlpool clan allowed them to slowly recover as long as they had a breath left. They could continue to try and make mistakes. When developing all kinds of dangerous forbidden techniques, this kind of advantage was too great. Xianglin went forward and took down a death mask hanging on the wall. She asked curiously, "If I wear it, can I also communicate with the death god?" The leader of the Swirl clan nodded. "Well, as long as you put on the mask and master the ghost sealing spell, even if you don't have the bloodline of our clan, you can still communicate with the god of death, not to mention an excellent child like you." Hyojin said, 4 generations Naruto didn't wear the death mask when he used the ghoul seal to deal with the rampaging Nine Tails. The Uzumaki patriarch explained, "As long as the proficiency is high enough and the chakra is strong enough, it is possible to summon the Shinigami with just the hand seals, but in that case it will not be possible to exert the full power of the Corpse Demon Seal. Only the Corpse Demon Seal, launched by wearing the death mask, will be the most powerful Corpse Demon Seal." Hyojin said, "I see. Xiang Lin put the death mask on her face and fiddled with it for a while. She then asked, "Can I practice the ghoul seal?" The Uzumaki patriarch immediately said sternly, "No, you are the only hope of our Uzumaki clan. You must not practice the ghoul seal." Corpse ghost seal was a forbidden technique that traded one's life for another's. Once it was used, the soul of the caster would be devoured by the Grim Reaper. Therefore, when the gentle patriarch of the Maelstrom Patriarch heard that Xiangli wanted to learn Corpse Ghost Seal, he immediately stopped her. Hyojin, who was standing on the side, smiled. The Uzumaki Patriarch undoubtedly regarded Xiang Lin as the only candidate to revive the Uzumaki clan. However, he didn't know that although the Uzumaki village was destroyed, the Uzumaki clan was not completely wiped out. Although the Uzumaki clan is rare and on the verge of extinction, every Uzumaki clan active in the shinobi world is a well-known figure, such as the leader of the Akatsuki organization, Nagato, and Mai's Nine Tails Jinchuriki, Naruto. Compared with the two of them, Xiang Lin was the least famous and the most inconspicuous one in the shinobi world. Xiang Lin also knew that Hyojin needed help from the Uzumaki Patriarch, so he quickly took off the shinobi mask and whispered, "If you don't want to learn, then don't learn." The Uzumaki Patriarch said, "Except for the ghoul seal, I can teach you all the other sealing techniques." At this time, Hyojin stared at the wall full of shinobi masks and thought about it with one hand supporting his chin. Since each mask corresponded to a shinobi, if he wanted to break the ghoul seal cast by 4 generations, he must accurately find the shinobi that appeared when 4 generations used the ghoul seal. Because of the many secrets involved, there are very few records of the night of the Kyuubi's rebellion, so Kuroto couldn't determine which Shinigami Yondaime-sama was channeling with. It seems that I can only ask 3 generations. Not only did 3 generations master the ghoul seal like 4 generations, but they also used the same shinobi. This could be seen from the fact that after Orochimaru unlocked the ghoul seal in the original space and time, not only did he release the souls of 4 generations, but he also released the souls of Hashirama, and his hands that were sealed by 3 generations. Xiang Lin asked Hyojin, "Master, what should we do with these masks?" Kuroto didn't even think about it, and said, "Take them all away." Each shinobi mask here represented the accumulation of the Uzumaki clan for hundreds and thousands of years in the development of the ghoul seal. Each of them was a treasure, so whether it was used or not, Hyojin had to take them away. Yes. After receiving Hyojin's order, Xiang Lin quickly began to pack up the shinobi masks that were hanging on the wall in front of him. The threat of the Uzumaki clan is not unreasonable, and looking at the masks all over the wall, Hyojin couldn't help but sigh. As long as the difference in strength between the two sides is not too great, as long as the Uzumaki clan wears the shinobi mask, it will be almost impossible to survive. Therefore, as long as the Uzumaki clan chooses 27 death warriors and puts on the shinobi mask, they'll have a high probability of killing 27 enemies, including the Kage-level powerhouses. Therefore, if it wasn't for several villages joining forces to besiege the Uzumaki clan, they might not be able to destroy the Uzumaki clan. From this point of view, the threat of the Uzumaki clan is indeed great. Because of the existence of the ghoul seal, the Uzumaki clan can use Chunin to kill the enemy's Jonin, and use Jonin to kill the enemy's elite Jonin, or even the Kage. Therefore, once the Uzumaki clan has evil intentions towards a shinobi village, they can easily kill the enemy's Kage with a small price. In the face of such a real threat, as well as the bewitchment of the mastermind behind the scenes, it is only natural that many shinobi villages join forces to deal with the Uzumaki clan. This is similar to the situation when Danzo attacked Jishui in the original timeline. The Uzumaki clan is just like Jishui. They have the power that people fear and desire. So even if Jishui didn't do anything to harm the interests of the shinobi village, Danzo still didn't hesitate to attack Jishui. The reason is not because you made a mistake, but because you threatened me. No matter who it is, we must be cautious and keep a low profile before we become truly invincible in the world. After sighing, Hyojin shook his head again and said, "No, even if we become invincible in the world, we can't be careless. Kagaya is still sealed on the moon." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. In addition, I would like to thank the students who gave me gifts today. Thank you. Chapter 1248. It didn't take long for Xiang Lin to remove the 27 death masks from the wall and put them into her bag. At this time, Suijin asked Patriarch Uzumaki casually, "Now that we have found a corresponding Shinigami mask, what should we do next to remove the corpse demon seal?" The Uzumaki Patriarch shook his head and said, "I don't know the specific method." Hyojin couldn't control his emotions and looked at the Patriarch in surprise. The leader of the Swirl clan, whose hands were hidden in his sleeves, said blandly, "Corpse Ghost Seal is a forbidden spell of certain death. Once it is cast, the caster will die together with the enemy. So, you only need to know how to cast the spell. As for how to remove the seal, it doesn't matter whether you learn it or not." This, Hyojin couldn't refute for a while, so he said, "But aren't you the Patriarch of the Uzumaki clan?" The Uzumaki Patriarch said coldly, "Our Uzumaki clan has many kinds of sealing techniques. No one can master all of them. Even I am no exception. 4-symbol seal, 8-trigram seal, King Kong seal, contract seal, Een seal, and other powerful sealing techniques all came from the Uzumaki clan. So although Corpse Ghost Seal is powerful, it's not a technique that everyone in the Uzumaki clan has to learn because of its huge side effect. As for whether or not there are people from the Uzumaki clan who study the method to break the Corpse Ghost Seal, there must be, but this kind of person is also a minority in the Uzumaki clan. It's just like Naruto. 3 generations may not necessarily know the first generations would release and the second generation's Flying Thunder God technique. But this doesn't prevent the 3 generations from becoming Mai's Naruto. The Uzumaki Patriarch is proficient in all the sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan, but as long as he is the strongest, he is qualified to be the Patriarch. The leader of the Maelstrom Patriarch wasn't particularly interested in the Ghoul Seal. He was good at other types of sealing techniques. Although he knew how to cast the Ghoul Seal, he didn't know how to break it. This was mainly related to the fact that Corpse Ghost Seal was a forbidden technique that would perish together with the enemy. For the user of the technique, there was almost no way to unseal it. After listening to the explanation of the Vortex Patriarch, Hyojin was speechless. Seeing this, the Patriarch of the Vortex Patriarch said, "Don't worry. Our tribe has the relevant records of the method of unsealing it. I will take you to the secret vault where the ancient books are kept." "You should have said so earlier." Hyojin smiled. For him, the value of the secret vault of the Whirlpool clan was no less than the method to crack the Ghoul Seal. After leaving the mask storage hall, the 3 of them headed west, crossed the strait, and entered the territory of the Fire Nation. Then they arrived in front of a remote mountain cave. Looking at the ordinary cave in front of him, Hyojin asked, "The Uzumaki clan's secret vault is not in the country of whirlpools?" The Patriarch of the Uzumaki clan said sadly, "No, this is just one of the secret vaults of our clan. The secret vault in the Vortex Village is the largest one of our Uzumaki clan." After thinking for a while, Hyojin said, "Take me directly here, the secret vault in the Vortex Village." The Patriarch nodded. "Yes, I destroyed it at the last moment before the village was breached." Sure enough, Hyojin sighed. From the fact that the Mist, Cloud, and Sand Crypsis ninja villages that had participated in the attack on the Uzumaki clan, there was no large-scale circulation of the Uzumaki clan sealing techniques. It could be inferred that the Uzumaki clan's secret vault was either not found or destroyed by the Uzumaki clan themselves. If they didn't find it, the major ninja villages obviously wouldn't let it go, so the result was obvious. They didn't delay any longer and walked into the cave together. As they walked, the Patriarch of the Uzumaki clan introduced, "This is the secret vault where our clan stores the contract seal and part of the undead demon seal information. Very few people know about it, so it's very safe, so you don't have to worry at all." In the middle of the words, the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan suddenly stopped, and his face became gloomy. Hyojin followed and found that the door of the secret vault deep in the cave had been opened, and the seal on the door had been broken. Ignoring the sullen patriarch of the Uzumaki clan, Hyojin walked directly into the secret vault, opened the door, and used the Tenseigan to check the secret vault that had been cleaned, then came to a corner and squatted down. There was a small hole in the corner. The hole was only the size of a fist. In the vision of Hyojin's Tenseigan, it stretched out in a zigzag way through layers of mountains and connected to the outside of the mountain wall. The patriarch of the Uzumaki clan also walked in, and when he found a small hole in the corner, his face suddenly darkened. Hyojin, who was squatting on the ground to investigate, got up at this time and said, "The other party should have invaded from here and then disintegrated the seal of the entire secret vault from the inside. Yes, this is indeed the weakest place in the seal of the secret vault." The expression of the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan was a little embarrassed. He was just boasting to Hyojin, but he was slapped in the face in the blink of an eye, which made him lose face in front of Xianglin. After a moment of hesitation, Hyojin said, "Since things have come to this, it seems that we can only find another way." Xianglin hurriedly asked, "Master, what should we do next?" Hyojin smiled and said, "You give me all the masks, and then return to the fourth base with your patriarch." The patriarch of the Uzumaki clan promised to guide Xianglin's regular practice method, so Hyojin simply let Xianglin practice with the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan during this period. Xianglin practiced various seals of the Uzumaki clan while adapting to the newly transplanted first-generation cells. In order to ensure the safety of the air fortress, he did not let Xianglin return to the air fortress with the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan, but went to the fourth base. Base 4 is an isolated island in the middle of the sea. Suijin has specially opened a training ground on it for practicing and developing ninjutsu, and a large number of living materials are stored there, just enough for Xianglin to practice there. Yes. In the face of Hyojin's arrangement, Xianglin naturally had no objection and quickly handed the bag containing 27 Shinigami masks to Hyojin and then left with the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan. After Xianglin and the patriarch of the Uzumaki clan left, Hyojin turned his head and glanced at the small hole in the corner again. The moment he found the small hole, he already knew who had stolen the secret vault of the Uzumaki clan, because in the depths of the winding cave, there was a scale stuck in the stone crack, and it was a snake scale. "Is it Orochimaru?" After a pause, Hyojin muttered to himself, "All right, this kind of impure earth reincarnation of the first-generation Naruto, I can't do it myself. Since the way to crack it is in the hands of Orochimaru, let him help me." I'm asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Chapter 1249. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. In the dense rain, a group of people was running at full speed. This group of people was none other than the Akatsuki organization's Miss Squad that had just evacuated from the old site of the Uzumaki village. There is no doubt that they were at a disadvantage in the fierce battle with the four ninjas, so they had to retreat. Humph! Lotus snorted with a face full of indignation. In the battle with Kimimaro, he was completely suppressed, and if it weren't for the help of the Onamaro, it would have been difficult for him to escape. Moreover, even with the help of the Onamaro, he was still seriously injured. Almost his entire right shoulder was pierced, and if it weren't for the special physique of the Kagaya clan, he would have been seriously injured and died. Damn it, I didn't expect that kid of the Snow clan to be so strong. Also injured was Raikata, who joined the Mist Squad not long ago. There was a long wound under his ribs, and blood stained half of his clothes. There were also several eye sticks on his back that he didn't have time to pull out. As one of the 7 swordsmen of the original Mist, he thought that it would be easy to deal with a few kids, but he didn't expect it to turn out like this. Bipa Juzo turned his head and glanced at the complaining Lotus and Raikata, then silently withdrew his gaze. Compared to Lotus and Raikata, the Onamaro and Muzum were more cautious, so they weren't injured in the battle just now, and their condition was still relatively good. After a long time, the Mist squad came to a forest and rested. At this time, Zetsu, who disappeared at the beginning of the battle, slowly poked out half of his body from the ground and said to the Mist squad, "The operation is cancelled. Return to the base." Beepod Juzo nodded silently, then led the Mist squad on the road again. After the Mist squad left, Zetsu muttered, "I really miss Nagato at this time. Except for the strongest Yama in the shinobi world, there is no enemy that he can't deal with. He is much stronger than these trash. Even a group of people can't deal with a few subordinates trained by Orochimaru." Black Zetsu said, "It's meaningless to talk about this now. Before Obsidian becomes Jubi's Jinchuriki, our manpower can't deal with Orochimaru at all, so we can only use another plan. Let your avatar act." After responding, Baiju asked again, "What about the other half of Nine Tails?" Black Ju seriously weighed the pros and cons and said, "Let's give up for now. If we make too big of a move now, it may attract the attention of Amatsukami and affect the progress of Obsidian's side. Let's wait until Obsidian becomes a Jubi's Jinchuriki first. Orochimaru is not a threat and can be dealt with at any time. There is no need to rush." Baiju snorted. "That disgusting bastard Orochimaru sure is lucky." In Whirlpool Tide Village. Although they managed to repel the Mist team, the ninja of Sound side wasn't doing too well. Yamato and Yugo, who had lost their Curse of Heaven, couldn't reach the Kage level. They could only be regarded as Jonin with special abilities and great potential, but there was still a gap between them and the elite Jonin. Kimimaro, who had activated the Curse of Earth, had reached the Kage level without a doubt. However, his current state wasn't stable. The blood disease in his body hadn't been eradicated, and he could only rely on Tsunade's medicine to maintain it, so he couldn't maintain a high-intensity battle for a long time. As for Haku, who was the strongest among the four, after mastering the immortal arts, his killing intent was getting weaker and weaker, and he wasn't as cold and fierce as before. After treating the wound, Yugo asked, "What should we do now?" Haku said, "The Akatsuki organization has intervened. It's too dangerous to continue staying here." Kimimaro nodded and said, "Well, let's return to the village first and report the situation here to Orochimaru-sama, and let him decide." After reaching a consensus, the ninja of Sound didn't dare to delay and immediately left the Vortex village. Just as the Mist squad and the ninja of Sound were forced to give up their mission because of this unexpected encounter, a figure slowly stepped into the ninja of Sound village. A member of Amatsukami. After seeing the clothes of the person, Onimaru was shocked. "Duo, you also said, it should be, but the pattern on his mask is too strange. Why is it the pattern of the sun? Is there a member of Amatsukami who wears such a mask?" The people around said, "Don't worry about it so much. Let's go and report to Orochimaru-sama." Soon, the news of a suspected member of Amatsukami's visit reached Orochimaru, who was in the underground palace. A mask with the pattern of the sun. Orochimaru's eyes flashed, and he said, "Is it an imposter or a new member of Amatsukami?" Doho thought for a while and suggested, "Since the other party has come to our door, let's meet him." Orochimaru said, "Then let's meet him." Orochimaru had an instinctive fear of Amatsukami, not only because of Amatsukami's strength, but also because he couldn't figure out what Amatsukami's purpose was. For Orochimaru, the unknown was the greatest fear, so compared to Akatsuki, who clearly wanted to collect the tailed beasts and resurrect the 10 tails, he was more afraid of Amatsukami's unknown intentions. Not long after, Doho led the member of Amatsukami wearing a mask with the pattern of the sun to Orochimaru. After carefully looking at the other party, Orochimaru became more vigilant. This was because with his perception, he couldn't sense the chakra in the other party's body. There were only two possibilities. One was that the other party was an ordinary person without chakra at all, and the other was that the other party had some means to completely block his perception. Doho asked in a timely manner, "Are you really a member of Amatsukami?" The member of Amatsukami wearing a mask with the pattern of the sun, replied in a female voice, "I'm Yang Shun of Amatsukume. This time I'm looking for you to make a deal with you." Yang Shun? A deal? Orochimaru suddenly became interested. He was curious about this member of Amatsukume who called herself Yang Shun, and also interested in the deal that Amatsukume suddenly came to him. Doho asked warily, "What deal?" Yang Shun threw the bag on the ground and said lightly, "This bag contains the mask of Shinigami needed to crack the ghoul seal. We'll give you the mask, and we want the half of Nine Tails." Doho was shocked. Their attempt to crack the ghoul seal was very confidential. Only the two of them and the four ninjas who were out on the mission knew about it. So when he heard Yang Shun's deal, he suddenly felt nervous, as if Amatsukume had completely seen through him. Orochimaru suppressed his surprise and said with a teasing face, "How do you know that I can crack the ghoul seal?" Yang Shun tilted his head and said with a smile, "For your sake, you'd better be able to do it." Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. Here's the second update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Also, thank you to the students who gave gifts today. Thank you, everyone. End of this chapter. Chapter 1250. Listening to young gods, slightly teasing words, Orochimaru and Du's faces changed at the same time, because the threat in young god's words was too obvious. Narrowing his eyes slightly, Orochimaru carefully looked at the member of Amatsukume in front of him with the code name Yang Shun. Judging from her height, she was about 16 or 17 years old, but her voice sounded a little immature. She seemed to be only 13 or 14 years old. Whether he is 16 or 17 years old or 13 or 14 years old, being threatened by a girl of this age is obviously not a pleasant experience for Orochimaru, who has been famous in the shinobi world for decades. However, he did not lose his mind because of this. On the contrary, he gradually put away his contempt and seriously thought about the deal that Yang Shun had just proposed, because he had dealt with the female Homusubi of Amatsukume before. Although Homusubi looked like a young girl, she was able to play him and Shimura Danzo in the palm of her hand. In the end, in the Kekkei Jinkai ritual that he planned for Shimura Danzo, Homusubi was unable to gain any advantage and instead suffered a big loss. This painful lesson made him understand that he could not judge a member of Amatsukume based on the standard of gender and age. As long as he was related to Amatsukume, he could not be careless about anything. She came to me directly and even offered to trade the Death God's mask. This means that Amatsukume not only knows that I've obtained the method to break the zombie demon seal, but they also know what I'm lacking. Orochimaru paused and wondered, but how do they know all this? Do they plan to spy around me? Yang Shun was getting impatient. Can you do it or not? Don't waste my time. De looked at Orochimaru nervously. Lord Orochimaru. Orochimaru waved at Du, indicating that there was no need to be nervous. He then said to Yang Shun, "All right, I accept this deal." After Orochimaru finished speaking, he regained his composure and walked leisurely to the small bag containing the Grim Reaper's mask. Then, he casually unzipped the bag. As the zipper was pulled open, the masks inside the bag were revealed. Orochimaru's expression froze as he looked at the Death God masks that were stacked on top of each other. This? Du was also taken aback. Through the ancient books obtained from the Whirlpool clan's secret vault, they learned that they must first find the corresponding Death God's mask to break the ghoul seal. However, they didn't expect the Whirlpool clan to have so many Death God's masks. At this time, the young god stepped aside and did not explain anything. It seemed that he was only waiting for Orochimaru to perform a spell. Orochimaru had no choice but to take out the Grim Reaper's mask from his bag and identify them one by one. After a while, he finally picked out the correct one from the 27 masks. Picking up the mask, Orochimaru said in a hoarse voice, "I didn't expect the Whirlpool clan to have so many death masks." The young god asked, "Can we start now?" Orochimaru smiled and said, "Please wait a moment." Without any additional instructions from Orochimaru, Du immediately bowed to Orochimaru and then turned around to prepare. After a while, Du took out a small jar of turbid dark red blood and an offering. After Du finished all the preparations, Orochimaru no longer hesitated. He immediately put the death god's mask on his face and quickly made a few seals with his hands. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a gust of cold wind blew in the closed underground palace hall. Then, Orochimaru's whole body trembled violently as if he had been struck by lightning. Du quickly shouted, "Lord Orochimaru!" The young god stopped Du, who was about to go forward, and said, "Don't go over, look." Looking at Orochimaru with rapt attention, Do found that at some point, a terrifying shadow of a Shinigami had appeared behind Orochimaru, and the Shinigami was holding a sharp dagger in its mouth. At this time, Orochimaru, who was wearing the death god's mask, said, "As long as the stomach of the death god is cut open, the soul sealed in it can be released." While listening to Orochimaru's explanation, the young god stared at the phantom of the death god behind Orochimaru. Obviously, she was very curious about this strange phantom of the death god, which contained a huge sense of oppression, and she wanted to explore it. Orochimaru, who had opened his arms, used the death god's mask on his face and began to secretly control the phantom of the death god behind him. With Orochimaru's control, the phantom of the death god removed the sharp dagger in its mouth with its right hand, and then stabbed its stomach fiercely. Clatter. Almost at the same time that the phantom of the death god cut its stomach, an identical wound appeared on Orochimaru's stomach. Blood suddenly splashed out and sprinkled on the ground. A humanoid chakra flew out of the stomach of the phantom of the death god and floated in the hall of the underground palace. Enduring the pain, Orochimaru covered his stomach while taking off the death god's mask on his face. In an instant, the cold wind dissipated, and the phantom of the death god behind him disappeared without a trace like a phantom. Du quickly stepped forward to support Orochimaru. "Lord Orochimaru, are you okay?" "It's okay. This body won't be used for long anyway." Shaking his head, Orochimaru said to the young god, "That chakra is the sealed soul of 4 generations Naruto." Yes, yes." The young god nodded, and his face under the mask was full of solemnity. Noticing that the young god's behavior was very casual and did not seem to know how to hide its emotions, which was completely different from the previous cold and cunning Balrog, Orochimaru couldn't help but be secretly suspicious. With a thought, Orochimaru smeared the small jar of blood that Du had prepared before on his fingertips, and then began to form a seal with both hands, shouting, "Impure Earth Reincarnation Technique." The soul of 4 generations Naruto, who had just escaped from the stomach of the death god, seemed to be summoned by something. Immediately, along with the extension of the impure earth reincarnation technique, it was thrown into the sacrificial offering that Orochimaru had prepared long ago. With a wail, the sacrificial offering prepared by Du gradually turned into the 4 generations Naruto, who was wearing Naruto's imperial robe. However, it was obvious that Orochimaru had not released the restrictions, so the impure earth body of 4 generations was still dull and unconscious. The young god couldn't help but exclaim, "So this is the impure earth reincarnation." The corners of Orochimaru's eyebrows twitched. He felt that there was something wrong with this young god. So he opened his mouth and probed, "4 generations has been released by my impure earth reincarnation. How are you going to get the 9 tails?" The young god said casually, "Release the 9 tails?" Du chuckled. "Your Excellency, young god, are you joking? The 9 tails is not ordinary. Even if it's only half, it's still a disaster-level existence. If we rashly release it from a body of 4 generations, it may not take more than an hour for it to completely raze our sound ninja village to the ground." Orochimaru smiled and did not say anything. It was obvious that he wanted to see how the member of God's organization, known as the Young God, would solve the big problem of the 9 tails. Here's the first update, asking for recommendation votes and monthly votes. Orochimaru and Do looked at each other. After a long time, the three of them came to a canyon far away from the Sound Village with the 4 generations Naruto's impure earth form. Looking around, Orochimaru asked Do with a solemn face, "Is there any problem here?" "Yes." Do nodded heavily. This canyon was a branch of a mountain range. It extended for thousands of meters, and the rock walls on both sides were 100 meters high. As long as it was combined with the immortal technique inorganic reincarnation under the immortal mode, it could instantly become a huge cage. Even if the Yang spirit couldn't deal with the 9 tails that had escaped, he could still use the terrain to trap the 9 tails and then find a way to seal it. After everything was ready, Orochimaru glanced at the Yang god opposite him. Although it was separated by a mask, he still felt the nervousness of the Yang god at the moment. Is this guy really from Amatsuka? Although he was suspicious, Orochimaru could only test a little bit. He didn't dare to directly break off the relationship, because the other party dared to come to him alone and took out all the Uzumaki clan's death masks. This alone was enough for him to be cautious. After collecting his thoughts, Orochimaru gave Do one last look to be vigilant. He controlled the impure earth form of 4 generations to start making hand seals. Soon, under the control of Orochimaru, the impure earth form of 4 generations slowly raised its arms and made hand seals, lifting the seal on the 9 tails. With the lifting of the seal, the orange chakra immediately leaked out from the impure earth form of 4 generations. In the blink of an eye, the violent and savage 9 tails chakra filled the entire canyon. At this moment, whether it was Orochimaru, as one of the Sannin of Mai, or Medicine Master Do, who had mastered the immortal mode, they all looked extremely solemn. The powerful 9 tails chakra that overflowed from the impure earth form of 4 generations also seemed to startle the Yang god, causing her to take a step back subconsciously. But soon, she stretched out her right hand and walked towards the 9 tails that were about to break free. What is she doing? When Orochimaru saw this, his pupils shrank suddenly. Under normal circumstances, in the face of the 9 tails that were about to break free, no matter what method the Yang god wanted to use to subdue the 9 tails, it had to be used as soon as possible. But he didn't expect that the Yang god would walk towards the 9 tails so boldly. Do, who was at the side, was also taken aback. Without hesitation, he immediately entered the immortal mode. While frantically refining the immortal technique chakra, he was ready to go all out. In his opinion, the Yang god approaching the 9 tails like this was purely courting death, so he had to subdue it immediately after the raging 9 tails tore the Yang god apart. Chapter 12:52. After the dazzling light dissipated, the huge 9 tails in the canyon also disappeared. If it weren't for the unique, violent chakra of the 9 tails still lingering in the air, Orochimaru and Do wouldn't even be sure if the 9 tails had really appeared. Do swallowed his saliva and looked at the Yang god in surprise. Because he was in the state of immortal mode, his vision was protected by a special layer of protection, so the strong light just now did not completely affect him. He still vaguely saw the process of the Yang god, using the sealing technique to seal the 9 tails. When a Yang god used the sealing technique, the chakra was naturally no longer hidden. What a strong chakra! Do's face was full of disbelief. As the assistant of Orochimaru, Do was very confident in his chakra. He felt that there were only a few ninjas stronger than him in the ninja world. But compared with the chakra of the Yang god just now, he suddenly felt the gap. No, to be more precise, all the ninjas he had seen, including the Kage of the 5 great ninja villages, were far less strong than the chakra of the Yang god in front of him. Perhaps only the 2 leaders of Amatsuka and Akatsuki could be compared with this Yang god. Like Do, Orochimaru was also shocked at the moment. He was preparing to communicate with the 1st generation. The hands of the 2nd generation, impure earth form, were directly frozen in the air. He didn't expect that this girl, who still couldn't hide her childishness, would have such a terrifying chakra. For a moment, he even had the illusion that he was facing Nagato himself. Because the chakra of a young god was too terrifying, it completely surpassed the Kage level. Even the strongest nine tails among the chakra looked extremely weak under this chakra. The nine tails was killed just like that. Subconsciously, Orochimaru's eyes glanced at the palm of the young god that had already been clenched. At this time, Yang Shun put his hand in the ninja bag tied to his waist and carefully put away the bell in his palm. At the same time, he muttered in a low voice, "It's not that powerful. It sounds so scary." Orochimaru opened his mouth, but found that he didn't know what to say and finally chose to shut up. Do pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose. His face was full of speechlessness. Obviously, the one who came to trade with Orochimaru was not Xiang Lin, but Zin, who had just fused with Morio and regained all of Miko's power. It was also because she was the one who made the move that Nine Tails was easily sealed without any resistance. After all, the sealing technique of the Miko in the Land of Demons is not inferior to the Uzumaki clan. The reason why they aren't as famous as the Uzumaki clan is mainly because the Miko-sama has removed their dark side, so they don't have the thought of invading or harassing others, nor do they have a competitive heart.